It's regret this week on Nothing Good.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, today's a wonderful episode. We have something going on that's really exciting. But before we get into our favorite wrestling matches of all time, which will be arguable, last episode I asked about Skinamarink, and you guys said you'd never heard of this.
Correct.
And I said, man, we got to watch the trailer. So after the episode was over, we sat down and we watched the trailer. What did you guys think of Skinamarink?
I'm disappointed after seeing the trailer that Lamb Chop isn't somewhere in the fucking house.
That you know of.
She's still caught on that. She's in there somewhere. Is it a she? Is Lamb Chop a she?
I have no clue.
I mean, Sharon, I think. Wait, no, Lamb Chop is something different, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very different show.
Sharon Lois and Bran had the elephant.
That's the elephant show.
Oh, man,
You're talking about Lamb Chop's
I'm getting stuff like...
all kinds of childhood stuff.
All childhood stuff just kind of... like mixed and matched
together. But it's
together.
creepy, though. I mean, the trailer's creepy.
It's creepy because it doesn't really tell you anything about it, but it's just like this weird ambiance.
It's a
like,
vibe.
It's like real grainy, like Blair Witch style grainy.
Yes.
And there's just like kids' rooms and toys, and then
weird, creepy
kids
whispering.
just sitting there in the dark. And
it has 16mm film school vibe kind of written all over it, with Quentin Tarantino / Robert Rodriguez audio.
That is a weird combination, but okay.
Right?
It fits.
Well, because if you think about like the Planet Terror, Death Proof, right? When they did the trailers in between the two movies, like that's the kind of audio that they're kind of going with. Those like that 1970s, just one singular movie trailer voice that's not epic in any way. It's just like, you know, kind of like voice where you have to like knock on your neighbor's doors and say, hey, my name is Charles and I just moved into the neighborhood and I'm legally obligated to tell you that. And then you just walk to the next house. Kind of vibe.
Okay, yeah.
Like
So
if you saw that he had a white van in his front yard that might have been an ice cream truck, you wouldn't think it'd be out of place.
Okay.
Kind of vibe.
We'll go. I can go with that. Yeah.
So the actual description of the film is: two children wake up in the middle of the night to find their father is missing, and all the windows and doors in their house are gone.
Yeah.
Gone.
Gone.
Vanished.
And there
like,
are some
like
voices.
not open.
They're gone.
Like gone.
Gone.
What's outside?
Nothing good.
There is no outside.
Well, see, that's a thing, right? Because like if the windows and doors are gone, and it's just like casings, right? But you still see like outside.
Nothing. There's
But
no.
if there's nothing
no
there,
windows, no doors.
fuck. Oh,
gone.
wait, no, they're gone.
They're gone.
Oh, see,
Dave.
I'm thinking
Vanished.
that.
I mean, this shit literally
Disappeared.
No, I'm thinking, as you guys say they're gone, I'm like, oh,
just open.
like a fucking contractor came in the middle of the night and just removed them. Just took them out.
That's a different type of scary
That's
movie.
a whole different... My movie is not as good as your movie there, sir.
Oh no, they're gone. They're trapped.
Yeah.
And I know, I kind of generally know what the more of the plot synopsis in it. It sounds very unsettling, and I like to watch it, but I don't have Shudder. At some point,
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
It's out
stream it.
already.
It's like your worst... It's like the worst of your like childhood
Exactly.
nightmares. Like all you... The only thing that like could possibly tie into that is like you trying to scream and you can't.
And you can't.
Or you're trying to run and you can't. Like, those are always the two things. Did you guys ever have those in nightmares when you were kids? Like...
My nightmares were never quite like that.
I could never run in my nightmares. Like, my legs would get, would almost be like concrete. And I got to the point where I'd be running, and then I'd be running slower and slower and slower to the point that I couldn't move anymore. And, like, I'd be trying to, like, physically pull my leg one step further, and then, like, whatever's pursuing me was, like, gaining on me, right?
Yeah, I can't say I've had that experience, but that's also why I don't run on a treadmill at the gym. Because why run if you're not going anywhere, right?
It's true.
That's a good point.
I mean, that's also a metaphor for life.
My dreams,
deep.
most of, and Mac, you know me long enough. No, I've told you about some of my dreams over the years that I've had. My dreams are almost always way too narrative driven. But it's just the way my brain works for whatever reason. So my nightmares are also narrative driven. But now that you're bringing up dreams, I mentioned this to my wife. This happened weeks ago, and it just stayed with me. I had this dream, and I wanted to message everybody about it, but it was so weird and silly, and I'm like, I sound like a fucking idiot if I do this. But we're here, we're recording, so fuck it.
Yeah,
the
might
internet,
as
the
well.
world will
Let's
know.
hear it.
But it was a cool dream though. So at this point, it's last month, way last month. I had a dream. This is no fucking exaggeration. Like it's one of those situations where like you don't know how you got there. I remember I was there and I was in a sewer, okay, like a sewer, right? And there was a TV. It was like a black and white TV, flickering black and white TV. And on this little TV, there was this woman. She was a fucking reporter. You see where I'm going with this shit.
Okay.
And she's like talking about the evil has returned to the city. What are we going to do? Okay. And I'm sitting there. There's like chairs and there's couches. And I'm in this fucking sewer with this fucking TV. And I'm like, I know what I gotta do. And there are 4 vats, just like look like maybe 75-gallon drums, just sitting on the floor of the sewer. Okay, so I walk over
Right next to the TV in the sewer.
Was there an empty
sewer.
pizza box by chance?
Motherfucker, let me get there. Okay, so in my dream,
Don't you ruin his dream.
I pry open the first lid with a fucking crowbar, and it's just like this fucking soupy mess. And I press a button on the side of like the bin, and like you're like a zzz, and like out comes a half flesh, half robot Ninja Turtle out of the fucking vat, and that's where it's hibernating, and it's fucking Leonardo.
Oh shit!
I turn him on, and I'm like, they're back, Leo.
Wait.
I
You got Leo out of the vat and you turned him on.
you heard me. So I go to the next one. Same thing.
Yeah.
Out comes Donatello.
Was Leo in the corner watching you while you're doing this with the rest of
Oh,
them?
you know
He's
he
gonna
was.
be okay.
And I go to the next one.
Get him some food.
And it's Raphael. And
You
I get to
need
the
some
4th
food.
one and the last one. God damn it, listen. And it's Michelangelo, but he's the only one who's not half robotic. Because he's now the leader. And he's the only one he's the fucking... And in my dream, he's the fucking leader of the Ninja Turtles, not Leo. Because he's the only one who's fully still a turtle. The battles they've been through, he's the only one who didn't get almost blown to smithereens.
Like the Ronin.
Fuck kids.
Exactly.
Spoiler alert.
He's the
Michelangelo.
last living turtle.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty
I
sure
have
that's
that.
where my brain got that from. It's the only place I could have got that from. And I'm just like, but it was all dark. It was all like this wet, like very sewer-like
Very sewer-like.
environment. And they're not talking. They're not saying a fucking word. They're just stoically standing there, ready to fucking go to war. And I woke up. It was a hell of a dream.
Dang.
Like that's kind of the dream. Like you wake up, you want to go back to.
I did.
You're like, can
I
I?
wanna know what happened
Can I go
next?
back to sleep and like pick up where I left off?
No, and you fall back asleep and you have some super fucked up dream. You're like, this is not what I went back for.
No.
No, he goes back to the lair, and April's just getting fucking like on like it's a train getting run on her of like 3
Okay.
robotic.
Only 3.
Yeah,
Leonardo's over there.
Yeah, Leonardo's
being the
watching
cuck he
like
is.
just
Fucking
smoking like a fucking cigar, going, yeah, April.
So that was my Ninja Turtle
Yeah.
dream I had
Your news
recently.
reporter, hot April. Yeah,
Hometown hot.
hometown hot.
Hometown reporter hot.
I
April O'Neil.
Well, she is.
I get shit all the time from Jeff and Mike Viola when I like talk about dreams that I have, because they're like, your dreams are all full of shit because they're far too detailed
That's
for
Nah, man.
for this to be real. And
Dreams
like
are like
I'll tell them like dreams that I have, and I kind of slow down a little bit because they give me so much shit for it. I'm like, you guys,
He got bullied
I got bullied.
and not telling
did.
about his dreams
I did.
anymore.
Yeah, I was definitely bullied a little bit there. I'm like, no, man, that's like really how descriptive it is.
That's because they're jealous, Dave.
It's like too much detail. Like you're talking about the ooze that they come out of.
It was wild, man.
Dave would be like, it was this shade of green, and this is exactly what it smelled like. I was like, that's too detailed. That's made up. Like you're making it up as you're saying it.
no.
It is not
It's a
real.
weird thing to like flex on, right? Amongst your friends.
My amazing dreams.
Let me go ahead and then Sean Connery showed up, and he smelled like a whiskey musk to him, and like, you know, like what a kind of a weird flex
Yeah.
is that to have with your friends? Like, let me tell you about like how let me make up this fake dream.
Yeah. I don't remember half my dreams, so maybe deep down I am jealous of
I
how
remember
detailed
my
your
dreams.
dreams are.
I
remember
have
that.
a lot of them are relatively like just uneventful, but like every once in a while, like I'll like a couple weeks ago I went and saw Ant-Man and the Wasp when it came out, and like then that Sunday we watched The Last of Us, where a lot of shit went down. So I had a dream that kind of combined Ant-Man and The Last of Us.
I bet that was weird.
It was weird. We were downtown, and like this is what's. I will say this about my dreams. They're usually fun because I'm usually the leader of the zombie resistance, or in some capacity of that. But like we had to build our stronghold at Duquesne University because
Of all places.
because you're gonna appreciate
High ground.
this. The high ground,
Smart.
because it's up on a hill, right? And I had to like come down from where like Mellon Arena was still there, and I had to like come down like through Mellon Arena and come down and like avoid all the infected and stuff like that. But it wasn't just infected; it was all the weird fucking things too from like the quantum realm. So like there's a few like zombies, there are a few things with mushrooms going out of their head, and there's something who'd like wanted 7 holes, right?
Well, if you look at, I could see how you draw the comparison. There's the guy from Quantum Realm who looks like broccoli,
Right.
and then if you look at the way the clickers are,
Yeah.
they're very similar. They're
Yeah,
very
they're-
fungal in shape and form.
Yeah. So, but like that was a fun dream, When I have those kind of dreams, bad things don't usually happen. But I always like when I go see a Marvel movie in theater because like I'll probably have a Marvel dream that weekend, and it's always good.
We should have
Sounds
an
marvelous.
episode where we just talk about the fucked up dreams we've had. Just bonus content.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you some shit I have dreamt that have stayed with me
Yeah,
for like
I always
10
remember the
years.
fucked up things, not like happy-go-lucky things. It's weird.
I had a recurring dream as a kid where I'd be like right before Kennywood Day. Kennywood, for anybody who might not be in the Pittsburgh area, is an amusement park outside of Pittsburgh. Where I'd be on one of the roller coasters, and like we would go down a hill and go up a hill, but when we went up the hill, the train just went off
Oh, shit.
the track, and the whole train would just be floating and like flying in the air. Never like came down. We just kept going up. And like that's when I'd wake up.
That sounds scary.
Yeah, and then I would just go fucking ride roller coasters.
His
instead.
bed's wet every time he wakes up. Like,
That's
I don't
a-
know why. I don't know what happened.
Jeff, that's a different dream.
So, that sounds like a scary dream, but you know what's not scary, Dave? This subject, this topic.
I might respectfully disagree with you just when we talk about the sheer number of ladder matches that
Man,
are going to be
all right.
coming up here.
So-
How scary some of that might be.
Folks, we decided a few weeks ago when we were plotting out what we wanted to do, we were going to talk about our favorite wrestling matches. And I kind of pushed for it a little bit because I'm like, well, at least this way we can pick 2 apiece, have
Yeah.
some time, we can talk about it.
Somewhat controlled.
Even though it was like I really pushed for it, I didn't realize really truly how difficult it would be to hammer down just 2.
Oh my god.
So what I did, and you know what, it's shame on me, I should have messaged you guys about this when I made this decision for myself. I was like, okay, I've watched countless wrestling matches in my life. Who knows how many. I've watched how many amazing 5-star matches, and some really bad ones, of course. But for me to sit down and go, okay, well, these are the best I've ever seen. These are my 2 favorite, rather. Not the best, but my favorites. Is damn near impossible. So what I did, I made the conscious decision to go, okay, I'm going to pick one that I'm saying it's one of my favorites, because it is, but on the merit of just the in-ring action alone. Just what that match was. And the other one, because it's so hard to choose, obviously the match has to be good, but it's everything else around it, the story, the build-up, the lead-in, the angle, the burn. Is it a slow burn? And that really helped me narrow down, which is why I chose what I chose. So we're going to go in alphabetical order. So Mac, Dave, you go first with your whichever one you want to talk about first.
Well, real quick, even too for the listeners, just we did put a couple. I think they were unspoken, like 1 or 2 like little restrictions on what we were picking here, because I think one of the ones we're not going to talk about today because we've had the conversation of this being its own episode of the podcast. You're not going to hear Stone Cold Steve Austin, Bret Hart.
Facts.
I think any one of us would have probably put that on our list easily. I think it's often referred to as one of maybe the greatest match of all time. arguably, in a lot of circles and things like that. So we did kind of decide that we're not going to talk about that one. I think that's really the only restriction we had. But
Yeah.
it's kind of
Yeah.
interesting too. Just looking at this on a higher level, we picked. There really aren't any repeat performers in the lists we kind of put together. There is not a lot of repeat performers.
No, there is a lot.
Oh well, there's one very common repeat.
There is one guy who's in almost every match.
That's true. But we have a pretty nice, I think, selection of wrestlers.
It's a healthy mix.
It's a healthy mix, right?
Easily, yeah.
These matches, not surprisingly, also took place at some of the grandest stages of them all in the wrestling lexicon. But without further ado here, I've often said this to you guys. Probably my favorite match that I've ever watched, and it's something that has stuck with me for a really, really long time. I really think it's the match that brought me back to wrestling. Is going to be SummerSlam 1998. Intercontinental title. Shocker. Although not at this point, but shocker to you guys. It's a ladder match between a couple of young up-and-comers in the industry. A couple of young bucks, as they will.
You may have heard of both of them.
You probably have heard of one or two of them. A gentleman by the name of Rocky Maivia, otherwise known as The Rock, if you smell what I'm cooking. And then, a gentleman of distinguishment who also likes to, quote-unquote, suck it in 3 very distinct letters in his name, and that would be Triple H. And this is a ladder match, Intercontinental title, 1998 SummerSlam, Rock versus Triple H.
So let me just get this right out of the way, Mac. Why?
There was something about this match that I watched it on pay-per-view live as it happened. Buddies of mine and I in high school had all kind of realized that we liked wrestling, but didn't really have the ability to watch pay-per-views, right? So a group of us would kind of get together, and we kind of, I'm not going to say it was a club or anything, but with I'm going to throw some names out there. Now, some of them actually listen to the podcast, which is kind of interesting.
Shout out to whoever the hell you are.
And thank you for listening.
Yeah, please.
One Brandon Hanna. B. Hanna.
B. Hanna. B. Hanna listens?
I don't know if he does or if he doesn't, but I'm saying he's...
You just said he does.
No, I'm saying some of them listen to the podcast.
Okay.
I'm going to do it again. B. Hanna.
He'll never hear it.
I was calling the... I called him HBK going through middle school and into high school.
B. Hanna and I used to work together back in the day.
You did?
For many years. He was a good man.
Yeah.
I miss him. He's a good dude.
But
he's dead. He's a good guy.
He is
no, he's alive and well
and
being very successful from what I understand.
Good for him.
But like myself, Brandon Hanna, Adam Jordan, Doug McMahon, Jared Nussbaum, Mark McGregor, and probably a few others, Lee Thompson, probably a few others that Dave LeClaire, I'm kind of maybe leaving out. But we would kind of pull some money together and go over to somebody's house, and we would give the parents the money and rent the pay-per-view. So we were over at, I believe this was, we were over at Doug's house, and we rented this pay-per-view. And, the thing that I loved about this match, and of course they didn't really know about it then, but it was really a coming out party for two now pillars of wrestling history. But this was an opportunity, and this was a great feud that had been going up between, the Nation and DX, and then Rock and Triple H, and you had these two guys. The Intercontinental title at that time was the proving ground for your mid-card. Probably more than anything else at that point. They're really using it to push the mid-card. And WWE didn't really have a ton of big names at this point. The main event of this match was Austin and Undertaker.
Yeah.
So, but it gave these guys an opportunity to really showcase themselves. There's great storytelling in this match. There's a lot of, I think, high ring IQ. in how they were able to tell the story. The fans are hot for it.
Dude, MSG, listen.
They're hot for DX.
Madison
Yeah.
Square Garden is always such an awesome wrestling crowd. And they're going to pop up again on this episode.
Yep.
You know, and it's interesting to me, and I want to just interject. If you go back and you really just watch this. So big 1998, such a good year for the WWF, for wrestling in general. But if you go back to that year and you look at where Triple H was, where The Rock was, one of the best parts about a wrestling feud, a really well done wrestling feud, is like, are the two combatants, are the two participants different from each other? Man, you couldn't almost get any more different than The Rock and Triple H.
Yep.
Triple H comes out, and for the record, the DX theme never sounds good live. I don't know why they always tried it so many times. It just never did. I don't give a fuck what anybody says.
That's true.
But man, could anybody pick anybody else with more fucking swagger than The Rock in '98? He was
dripping with swagger.
He's still got it.
That motherfucker, full on heel. I mean, in his heelness. Like, this is like the height of his mid-card heel level.
Yeah.
And he comes out the gate with Mark Henry, full swag. This man has only been working in the WWF for like 2 years.
2 years. That's it.
And he is, in 2 years, he is now the number 2 champion in the company, facing against what would probably be considered maybe the number 2 babyface in the company. Because I'm pretty confident Triple H was the number 2 babyface. I don't know who else was below Austin at the time. Right?
Yeah.
No, probably not at that point.
And not only that, in a ladder match in the most famous arena in the world in 2 years. In 2 years.
It's a big deal.
The chip on the shoulder was real.
Oh, yeah.
And it was so good. He comes out and he puts the belt in his mouth and climbs a ladder. And I'm just like, this dude, like, everybody and their mother knew. I remember back in '98, I was a big fan of Rock through every stage of his career. You know, I did not chant "Die, Rocky, die." I thought The Rock was the man. I knew he was going to be something big. And by '98, I'm like, the rocket ship was about to be strapped to him. Because in 3 months, he's heavyweight champion.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and this may have been the catalyst to take the belt off him here and give him the real one.
Yeah, MSG is a character in this match.
Yes.
Absolutely. The fans... You know, one of the things to keep in mind here, too, everybody, if you do have, Peacock and you get a chance to, watch the WWE Network and you want to go back and watch some of these matches here with us, pay attention as much to the crowd around what's happening as you are with what's going on in the ring, because wrestling fans today, they are not like that.
No.
The investment, I don't think, is there. Wrestling was very personal in 1998. Between, the WWF fans and the WCW fans and I almost think they were almost overcompensating in some ways for their product and their brand. And, I think in some cases when you had some elements that were starting to take off now, right? Because I think this point WWF is Attitude Era. We've got Stone Cold is just through the roof. But again, it's only a few people that are at the top of that pedestal because so many of the main event guys are in WCW. It's very much we have an opening, fucking here's your opportunity, come up and take it. And that's what this match was to me.
Right.
Just watching these two guys just go at it, and 25-minute and 58-second match.
That's a lot of time to tell a story.
Which is a long time to tell a story. And the second longest match of the night, only really 20 seconds shorter than Austin and Undertaker. So kind of put that in perspective that, in a card where the matches were maybe 10, 12 minutes in most cases, there were two on this card that got that whatever time they needed, and that was this. So, and talking a little bit about Rock, right? Key Rock, heat, heel... You just tell what this guy has.
Yeah.
Undeniable. For both of them, really, in this match. Undeniable. Right at the beginning of the match, right before the bell rings, Rock and Triple H are standing face to face.
Oh, they're
and then
motherfucking
you just
each other.
motherfucking each other. Fuck you to Triple H, and we're off.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And, it doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel fake. Like, you immediately get right from that.
Yeah, you can feel the heat.
You can feel the heat just from that moment, and you just know, fuck, strap yourselves in, man. Like, we're ready to roll.
Yeah, and when we shared our list of matches, I was surprised to see Triple H on the list. And it's not that Triple H is a bad wrestler. I mean, he's great. And this particular point of time, he was babyface. DX was super fucking over.
Mm-hmm.
So over.
And they were really leaning hard into The Rock being the heel at that time. It's just, in that era, I don't think Triple H really did it for me as a wrestling fan. Although I respect the shit out of this match, and because they're very different,
Yeah.
The Rock and Triple H, but they're also very similar in a lot of ways.
Young, hungry, about close to the same age.
Rock was 26 in this match. Triple H was 29.
So, interestingly enough, okay, so there's a lot to. Okay, there's the storyline, right? Because I remember, Pepperidge Farm remembers. I remember the lead up to this match because again, big fan of Rock, fan of Triple H, and I'll get to my thoughts on Triple H eventually. But it was I remember they had the street fight on Raw between DX and the Nation of Domination. I remember it was a bad beatdown. I remember the Nation laid out DX. I remember Rock had almost sexually assaulted Chyna live on Raw because the DX were like locked in the locker room and Chyna was by herself, and Rock and the Nation, they had her like on her knees, and I remember The Rock was like, put her on her knees where she belongs, and he's like, I'm gonna give you a kiss and all that stuff, and he goes,
Attitude Era was a different time, my friends.
do you not remember
Jesus
that?
Christ.
I remember that. Dude,
I think
the heat that Rock was trying
Yeah.
to generate was no joke.
Jones, I'm pretty confident that I blocked that out of my conscious memory.
He
and now I'm
sexually
starting to
harassed
So,
Lillian Garcia every single week.
Well,
I
I remember that.
I think D'Lo had Chyna on one side, Mark had Chyna on the other side, had her by the hair, and Rock standing on the ladder looking down at her, and he's like, I'm going to give you what you want. That's a kiss from the great one, all that stuff. And he gets real close, and he goes, The Rock would never kiss a piece of trash like you. And it was so but that's the
Jesus.
thing. It's so personal. A good feud has to be personal. And that made when Chyna gives him the low blow at the end, it made
His
it all
vindication,
worth it.
yeah.
Because he crossed a line that he shouldn't have crossed. And he learned. He gonna learn today. He learned. Do not cross Chyna. Rest in peace. To Triple H, and my thoughts on him, to what you said, Jeff, I was never a huge Triple H fan through any of his incarnations until 99, when he pushed DX away after the whole he joined the corporation, but
Fully
that was
embraced the game.
fucking weird. It didn't make any damn sense. But when he is like, there are people who study the game, there are people who live it and they breathe it. I'm the game.
Yeah.
This is my time. That my time business,
Yeah.
dude. I thrive.
Yeah,
with that.
the game Motorhead version of Triple H is my favorite Triple H.
Well, I mean, because
Hands
it's the
down.
first time that he stepped out of the shadows that he had been brought up in all those years. I mean, he was always, when he was, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, and he was the, aristocrat, and, then he clearly Sean's number 2, and, we're putting you with Sean because we want you to learn off Sean, and we also want you to build momentum off of Sean. And then, of course, Sean walks. Michaels can't wrestle anymore. He's
Loses
out.
his smile.
And then Triple H becomes the de facto DX. And then, you see X-Pac come in, and you got New Age and Chyna, and then, of course, he's the leader of the faction. But again, none of that's really even still his. This is all stuff that was kind of before. But, of course, once we get to the game, there's elements of truth that he's uttering when he says that.
I still remember. It's still one. There are a few people. Look, Triple H is not. It's weird. It's gonna sound weird. It's not that he's not a bad promo. He's a great promo.
Right.
But he doesn't have to have catchphrases necessarily to get his point across.
Right.
He's
Right.
good at it. But I burned in my teenage memory is that sit down with JR when he said, "I'm the fucking game," and I just was like, "What the this guy?
Yeah.
Who is this guy?"
Yeah.
And he became more aggressive.
You're like, you're not the game just because you say it, and then he backed it up, and you're like,
Yeah.
all right, yeah, I'm gonna take
Okay,
you
I'll go with
serious
that.
now.
When they
Yeah.
put him in because he was in the main event for the heavyweight title, was him, Austin, and Mankind at the next year's SummerSlam.
Yeah, was.
And that was his first real shot at the heavyweight title. And that was a big deal. And I didn't believe it, because I was not a believer that he's not a main event guy. Well, I was fucking wrong. He was the... Listen, there are a few people in wrestling, in the WWF, who has been more important to the last 20 years. Not Cena, not Austin, not Rock, Hunter. He's been there the entire time. That's mainly because he can't act. Let's be fair. If he could act...
I mean, he did have a nice little role in Blade Trinity.
Yeah, and it was that stupid movie, the what was it, the babysitter, the girl, the bus driver, whatever
Something
he was.
like that, yeah.
WWE Studios. But point is that he is, and now running the company, he is the most important man in wrestling.
Yeah, and if you look at the impact, his in-ring career, the impact he's had from a creative and a talent development standpoint, I mean, it's without question that he's left a lasting legacy over there.
Yeah, his DNA is all over WWE right now. It's all over Stephanie.
There's a joke in there somewhere.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming.
Is it
coming?
Tayo.
Hello. But I think there's always. I mean, anybody who pays attention to wrestling knows that when a wrestler is authentic, is when you really believe him or her, right? And we've seen times where the authenticity just takes over. It's like this point of self-actualization in a wrestler's psyche when they're just so over the bullshit and they're so over everything, and then they just kind of like themselves just comes out as a part of their character as well. You saw that with Stone Cold. You saw that with more modern Becky Lynch. And, with The Rock, just always had it. Like, that was just... Well, I won't say always, but it came real quick for him.
Yeah.
But the talent was there for Triple H. And I think this match put him into... Now there's a conversation. Now we've got another guy that we can kind of like... Not now... But he's going to go ahead and take
we
over.
Put our chips in that corner.
He's going to start taking over the mid.
Bet.
Yeah, he'll take care of the mid card right now, as we get some other guys up, and which also gives us the opportunity to let Rock.
Speaking of which,
yep.
So it's fascinating, and I saw the show live, and being a Rock fan, and everybody like, oh, Rocky sucks. I'm like, nah, man, he's the fucking man. He's the best. He's the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time. And to watch this man come out booed, New York's like, F this guy.
Oh, he gives zero fucks about the crowd.
But then...
Well, also, too, with MSG, like, there's no stage. It's just a door. And it's a short runway. Yeah. And that runway
is narrow, too.
It's bigger than this fucking table, right?
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit bigger than the table we're sitting at right now, everybody. And that's like arm's length wide. So the people, they're right on top of you. And as soon as you... get involved. I mean, they're cursing at him.
There's a couple spots in this match where they end up back down there because that's where the ladder was.
Yeah,
and they're just going at it, and like the crowd is just they're 100% in the fucking match.
Yeah,
and it was great. It was good.
So it's interesting, and we mentioned you and I talked about this before. I know that. Watching that match play out and watching him come out, he's full on heel. The beauty of The Rock's character is that he doesn't have to change what he does to be a heel or a babyface.
Right.
Just little tiny things. But as the match progresses, you start hearing that polarizing chant of Rocky sucks, but then you'd hear like a Rocky sucks.
Yep.
And it starts, because New York fans, they like a good wrestler. They just like an entertaining person. And as the match continues on, the Rocky chants get a little louder, but the Rocky sucks chants are still there until he slams him on the ladder and he looks up and the crowd goes, oh, it's fucking time.
Oh, yeah.
And the people's elbow, and they pop so hard because it doesn't matter if he's the heel. They love the people's elbow.
Yeah. One of the notes I made was one of my favorite spot in this match was when he does the people's elbow after he lays Triple H out on the ladder. And I mean, I love The Rock. I always have. The people's elbow is like the most ineffective showboat move ever, but the crowd just fucking blows up every time.
Every second. It's a cool move.
And it's on the ladder, and I was like, dude, he's fucking selling it so hard. It's so good.
Well, and the thing I think that lends to that too, and I made a note of this, is that The people's elbow is what? It's an elbow drop to the chest.
It's
right?
a weak-ass move.
Mm-hmm.
But, according to JR, it's an elbow to his heart.
Right into the heart.
Right into the heart.
Right into the heart.
And I said, too, in this, I made a note at the end that my flowers to JR and King's Call in that match because, it adds to the mythology of
I
it.
miss JR. God damn it.
Good old JR.
It's never he got a hit to the head. He's like, he bashed him in his skull. The vocabulary that he uses to tell a match just adds so much more to it. But yeah, that's what's so great about that spot when he's got the ladder right in the middle and then he just kind of puts the body slam on him and you're not even thinking about it, but it's all of a sudden there. And that's what's great about that move is that it has a instantaneous recognition. One of the things I don't like about wrestling today is when wrestlers are about to do their finishing move, they have to do the fucking wind up.
Telegraph
They
it.
do the wind up. Roman Reigns has got to go ahead and get into the corner and
punch the
ground and do hoo-ah and then do the spear and everything. And when Shawn Michaels late in his career was doing the leg, well, he did the leg stomp too a lot of times, but I don't like that. I like when it's organic.
It's like the RKO.
Yeah.
Comes out of anywhere.
Out of nowhere. That's why I think that's one of the best finishing moves ever. Same thing with the stunner. You can do it at any point in time. And you can really do the people's elbow at any point in time because you're just not expecting it, and then just all of a sudden it's there.
Yeah.
But that was great. I like too in this match that because I think in any great match, especially when you have one that's long, is you have to have an element of storytelling and ring psychology. Triple H leading up to this, you had a lot of problems with his knee. Injury of the knee, and then for like the first 7 or 8 minutes of the match, Rock goes to town on the knee.
He's just working it.
Just working the knee, and it's like, all right, he's breaking him down a little bit. Again, you don't see a ton of that in wrestling these days, where they just another match we'll talk about later on. I have a point where they kind of forgot about the ring psychology that they were doing in the middle of that match, but it's just the build up too. There were spots, but there weren't a ton of high spots.
No. Yeah, guys, that size there wouldn't be, right?
No,
They're
but
too big physically.
Right. But the match just has such an organic build up to it too. You don't see a lot of finishing moves or anything until the last couple minutes of the match. And also speaking of finishing moves, props to the real pedigree. The one where Triple H will fuck up your day because he has your arms, tied up and he's going to drop you, and instead of letting your arms go so you can brace yourself. It's just from top to bottom. It's just so good.
And there's a number of ladder matches on our list for discussion today. This felt like the least ladder match of the ladder matches.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Jones, I have a question for you about this match.
Yes.
Sorry, go do your point first.
No, go on.
It's going to take us out of the conversation, so go ahead and give your point.
I was kind of swirling around to the wrap up. So no, please.
Yeah. So in this match, it's Rock and Triple H, but we do have two people on the outside of the ring. We have Mark Henry and we have Chyna. So Jones, my first question for you is this: between Mark Henry and Chyna, who has the better tits?
At the time.
Yeah.
Chyna.
Okay. I'm glad that you said that, Jones. So that brings me to my follow-up question to that.
Nice setup.
If you had the opportunity at that point in time, and your choice was to fuck Chyna or to fuck the Sega Channel,
Yeah.
who you fucking?
Chyna.
Okay.
Okay. What?
Okay. All right.
I don't know why that's even called in the question.
I just wanted to kind of see what your thoughts were on the subject.
It's important that we sneak that in there every once in a while.
It's been a while.
So
Just
you never
slightly.
forget.
Just have to make sure that the
Yeah.
audience,
Yeah.
never forget.
Yeah,
Never forget.
I'll never forget. But yeah, so 1998, a good year for wrestling, great year for The Rock and for Triple H. Great year for The Rock, actually.
Yeah.
Better year for The Rock.
Yeah, for sure.
Triple H was still kind of back there a little bit, but no, I think that was an excellent pick. And it's actually one of my favorite ladder matches
good
of
choice.
all time.
Yeah. Last thing, did you guys watch this match on Peacock?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
No.
All right. On Peacock, they had a home video only.
Yeah, I saw that.
Thing.
I'd never seen that before.
Never saw it before either. So I actually watched it twice because, like, what the fuck is this? So when you watch this on Peacock, everybody, they had a segment that did not appear as a part of the pay-per-view. It was a, behind-the-scenes kind of a thing of The Rock leaving the ring, going through the entrance with a doctor who wants to go kind of check on her. Because The Rock gets busted open during the match a little bit of blood on his face and everything. Again, kind of adds to it. But they go backstage, and the doctor's like trying to help The Rock. He's like, Rock, we got to check on you. Rock's like, get out of The Rock's face, And then The Rock just goes and fucking cuts a promo.
Yeah.
Right after the match is over. Like, what, 3 minutes maybe?
Yeah.
And it's a brilliant promo about, how, the Triple H got this one on The Rock, but, guarantee the People's Champion is going to come back for it, and, your time holding the belt is limit. It was so fucking good.
Yeah, it was solid. He's just sitting down, still bleeding. He just cussed the doctor out, and he's just like, you got me this time, but The Rock is still the people's champ. The Rock is still the people's choice, and the time will come, Triple H. I'm gonna get that belt back. That's the little follow-up rubber band promo, which he did not need.
Nope.
because
Nor did he ever look back on the Intercontinental title.
That was it. He leveled up, folks.
Yeah.
Yep. So I guess we in alphabetical order. I guess I will go next then. So I'm glad that I was gonna save this match for last, but there's a lot I need to say about it. And it's not the match that you think that I would want to have to say a lot about. But SummerSlam 2013, Brock Lesnar and CM Punk. In my opinion, it's the perfect match, which is a big statement. But, like, what makes a perfect match, right? A perfect match requires a lot of things in my mind. And this is all just my opinion, of course. But, like, a perfect match requires two capable, experienced, or multiple wrestlers. Like, you have to have people who know what they're doing. CM Punk and Brock Lesnar. The story has to have a build, a real genuine build to it. And this feud, man, is one of my top feuds of 2013. And one of the top feuds of the decade. Because it was a feud not with Brock Lesnar, it was CM Punk and Paul Heyman.
Yep.
Right? Because they were best friends. And the beauty of this storyline is that it was air quotes real. Because they had a relationship when Punk came to ECW and Paul Heyman was kind of running that show when he came to the WWF. They had a relationship. They became friends. They became friends over time, and they became very good friends. And when Punk became heavyweight champion, started his streak, became a heel, joined with Heyman, it all was like peanut butter and jelly until it wasn't. Until Punk loses the title to The Rock. Was it The Rock? Yeah, he lost to The Rock at Rumble that year. Loses against The Undertaker. Comes back a babyface. Because he was a heel for a while.
Yes, he was.
Because he turned heel on The Rock the year before.
He had great heel heat.
God, he was so good as a heel. I couldn't stand him. It was great. And then we get to that point, that thing that babyfaces do, or heels do, like, I don't need your help tonight. And for some reason, that's always just the thing. That just offends the other party so badly. You don't need me
of
tonight.
Of all the shit you did, that's it.
Well, I'm going to screw you out of the Money in the Bank. And so that's what Paul Heyman did. He hit him with the ladder. And I remember I was so invested in the storyline because they were carrying it so well.
Yeah.
But what makes a perfect match, right? The slow build, the realism. Are they blurring the lines? And they did an excellent job. But more importantly, the thing that I hammer in every single wrestling episode we have, is it personal? And it was personal. There was no title involved. Didn't need it. It was the best versus the beast.
Is this the only match that we have of the 6 that we've talked about for this where there isn't a title on the line?
Yes.
I think there is. Yes.
Yeah. And for my money, there is something about betrayal that means something in wrestling, right? So, for example, we have siblings. We love our siblings. I'm sure our siblings love us on some level. But if our siblings, brothers or sister, betray us, it hurts. It burns. Or they do something that just isn't right. But the most important part is it's not as bad as if it's your best friend. Because you didn't choose your sibling.
Right.
That shit you were born into. You chose your best friend. You chose to trust them. And when they throw that trust away, it's real.
Now, one person who is not here today might disagree with us based on the introduction he had to the episode last week for Hellblade, where Noah did his whole betrayal intro.
I think that's why he would agree, actually, because we betrayed him.
Well, yeah. No, I'm saying in terms of like family versus friends. Yeah. So
I think that this feud was great because you could relate on a level, not to like the pageantry of it all, but you can relate to the betrayal of your friend. Most of us as adults have had a friend, or it doesn't have to be a best friend, somebody that you thought was your friend, or at least a decent friend, like just do something, you're just like, well, motherfucker.
They did you dirty.
And you're just like, and that shit burns because you chose to trust this human being with information or with your friendship, with your heart, with your camaraderie, whatever the case, right? And that's what makes this match so special to me. That's why it's on the list. That's why it's on my top 2, because it is, not only is it an excellent match, but the storyline was fucking pitch perfect. You couldn't get any better. And when the force of nature, Brock Lesnar, arrives, when the look on Punk's face, I remember watching that Raw, and the music plays, and he's just like, motherfucker. He knew. We all knew it was coming. We all knew this is where this was going to go.
Yeah.
There's only so many times you could beat up McGillicuddy until you go to, like, Bowser shows up.
when a bear in a man suit is standing at the end of a runway, and you know he's fucking coming for you, and you asked for this, and now it's time to pay up. Your asshole puckers a little bit, gets a little bit tighter,
And the other reason why I agree, the other reason why I think that this is the perfect match, or an example of a perfect match, is that it does all those things. Like I said, it has all those beats that I already listed, but on top of that, it has an archetype to it. It has a theme to it. David and Goliath. It's not two equally matched superstars. You got one CM Punk who's agile, who's snarky, who's technically sound. And now, not to say Lesnar's not technically sound; he's very technically sound, but a total different approach. He will brutalize you. He will maim you. What did Paul Heyman say in the promo? He will victimize you.
Yeah.
That is so good. He's so good at that.
Yeah, there's such a contrast because Punk he's very technical, but he's also like very fast and high flying and, move after move after move. Whereas Lesnar is slower, far more brutal. He was in full on beast mode.
Beast mode,
in this
yes.
match. And far more methodical in terms of it's almost like back to his UFC roots where I am just going to break you down physically.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to be broken down mentally because I broke you down physically. Like, I'm not playing head games. I am just going to beat the shit out of you.
Yes.
Because that's what I do.
There's something that happens in this match that I'm gonna call out. I fucking hate that I'm calling it out because of specifically who it is who did it. There are 3 announcers calling this match, everybody, if you watch it. Michael Cole, Jerry the King Lawler, and that motherfucker, John Bradshaw Layfield.
Your favorite.
My fucking favorite.
That's your boy.
It's my boy. JBL says, and this to me sums the entire, what you guys just said, sums the whole match up. There's a point where Lesnar has Punk in a hold in the air. I think he caught him off the top rope. And, Lesnar gets his arm underneath Punk, has him from up top, switched underneath, and then fucking throws him across the ring.
Right.
And JBL, that's a grown man Lesnar just threw across the ring.
It's true.
And I paused it. I wound it. I watched it again. Did it a second time. And I'm like, I can confirm that
My sources confirmed.
My sources have confirmed that was a grown-ass fucking man that he tossed the way I throw a toy with my dog.
It's true, though. He fucking threw
CM
him.
Punk has a family. He has a bank account. Like, he probably has a fridge full of food at home. And that man threw him like he was fucking nothing.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And if you want any type of a greater image in your mind of what the dichotomy of these two wrestlers are, the opposites. And the best part about this match is, and this is the other note I put, is that you feel during the match, like if you optics, right? This was great when great wrestling's great, which is the thing I loved about this match. You look at Brock Lesnar and you look at Jeff Vandergrift, right? Two individuals of different sizes, about the same age.
Varying in size,
right?
yes.
Various in size, right?
Varying in size.
You would sit there and go, Jeff ain't going to beat Brock Lesnar. No offense, Jeff. Same with me.
No one
Same
at this
with
table's
you,
going
right?
to beat Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
Same thing if fucking CM Punk is sitting right there.
Right.
We're going to look at that and say there is no fucking chance. The optics. But how many times when you're watching this match do you believe that CM Punk has the match won and it's being pulled away from him? At least 3 times from my count.
Until that F5 on the chair.
Yeah.
So I specifically wrote, to your point,
Yeah.
there is no logical way Punk can beat Lesnar, which is why you as a fan can believe that he will.
Yep.
And that's the best.
David and Goliath, that's it.
This to me is truly the It took 434 days, but it is the perfect match. It doesn't. To me, this is CM Punk's swan song. This whole angle, everything, not the Straight Edge Society, not any of that, not the stuff with Nexus. All this stuff was good. Punk's never bad. Is all this, but this.
The mic bomb?
That was one moment.
Still.
This was a culmination of all that. All that. Because if you think about it, after that, what did he do? He feuded with the Wyatts for like a week and a half with Daniel Bryan, and that was it. And then the Rumble happens, and then he quits.
Yeah.
So like, this whole storyline, it to me was such a beautiful. It was beautiful then as a fan, as to watch something manifest slowly. Because you think about again, Lesnar didn't show up every week. Punk and Heyman were there every week.
Yep.
I looked forward to their interactions because I knew it was going to be good every single time.
Well, if you think too, at that point in wrestling, we were at a point where a lot of guys weren't getting pushed. You know what we would, I think, around this time, and I probably got some dates and stuff kind of mixed up, but right, were we watching and like John Cena? No, Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels had went away for a little bit, came back, and he's like, "All right, so who are you pushing?" And they're like, Cena, Randy Orton. They're fighting again. And, you know, you'd be like, they were just doing that like a year and a half ago when I was here. And it was the same situation. Yeah. They had a roster full of hugely talented people, but nobody was really getting pushed.
I will disagree with that. And I will argue the Yes Movement was a thing.
Yeah.
Because, you know, Daniel Bryan was fighting John Cena for the heavyweight title that very night.
He was. But
he did win.
But I'm saying, like, kind of leading into this. But CM Punk came along and held the belt for,
434 days.
434 days, right? And that changed the landscape. You know, I think one of the favorite things during that time, Jones, when we were roommates and, like, right before that, was watching Daniel Bryan and Punk feud. Because it was great storytelling, great wrestling, and it was different. It was a different voice at that point. But Punk was a very different than what we even typically see now.
Right.
Except for one thing. There's one thing that's still the same that I wanted to mention to you. I want to ask you guys about here. And his name is Paul Heyman.
Dude, he's the greatest.
I was going to talk about that next. So, this match really comes down to the masterful way that Paul Heyman's. We saw it, you know, here in this feud with Punk and Lesnar. We've seen it, you know, over the years with Lesnar, with the Bloodline, with what went down with Sami Zayn, with what's going on now with Cody Rhodes. Like, Paul Heyman is so fucking good at his job.
Yeah.
To a ridiculous degree, because everybody fucking hates Paul Heyman, but you love Paul Heyman for the way that he does what he does.
It's like he gets it in a way that nobody else can possibly dream of getting it, to an extent.
Sorry, go on. Threw me off a little bit.
It's okay. To the point that I wrote here, the question I want to ask you guys. Is Paul Heyman the most important thing to happen to wrestling in the last 25 years?
Nope.
Yeah, I don't think so. He's got an important part to play for sure. There's been a lot of Paul Heyman guys.
Yeah.
And there will be another Paul Heyman guy after the current Paul Heyman guys in the bloodline. Important place to play? Yes, definitely. The most important? No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think he is an excellent... He accentuates everything. He accents everything. Paul Heyman's never bad on the microphone. Period. No. Yeah, and actually, where did I write it? Okay, so again, we've all been watching wrestling a long time. I arguably have watched a hair more wrestling than you guys may have over the years of your life, potentially. And the one thing that always is like sticks in my craw as a fan, as a consumer, when I watch a manager on the outside not in character, there's always a moment where that particular manager or that valet is just standing around like, and almost like they're not being themselves. They're not being the character they're supposed to be. There is never a point. Paul Heyman basically acts as if he's always on camera all the time.
Always.
No matter what is happening, his eyes, his body language, his look on his face, his facial expressions are so perfect. That whole match, at no point, whether it was like a little sliver of the side of his face, he had that, he's in it.
Yeah.
Because Paul Heyman's a fan. Paul Heyman's a real
he's in
fan.
it. Yeah. He's fully invested. And you even see that today. I'm sure you guys watched Elimination Chamber. And the whole time he's on the side of the ring like, oh, Tribal Chief. Yes, Tribal Chief.
So
like,
good.
Yeah.
Like the camera's not even on him, but you can hear him like over there on the other side like, come on, Tribal Chief. You got this, Tribal Chief. Sami Zayn's a piece of shit, Tribal Chief.
He loves what he does. You
He
can
does.
tell he
and
loves
he's
what
so
he does.
good at it.
Yeah.
And he makes it personal every time. Like
Well,
what's going on with
God,
Cody
that-
and Roman
yeah.
right now to
That
pull
promo was
Dusty
so
into
damn
it.
good.
Ladies
Like,
and gentlemen,
it's fucking
Jones
deep.
just took off his glasses.
He cuts deep.
Yeah.
He knows what he's fucking doing.
Said some real shit to Cody and did not get smacked in the mouth for
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
But yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on this. I really wanted. I wrote a lot about this match.
I did too.
More than any other match because I felt so strongly that it's weird that I've watched so many matches that I love that I'm like, oh, this is one of my favorite matches of all time. But like when I sat and really thought about it, I'm like, there are a few matches that like everything lines up,
Right.
all of it.
All the
There's
stars
nothing
align.
that's like, that was a little weak. No, the man who should have won. There's no logical reason or way the Punk should have beat him. So yeah, we'll pass the baton over to Jeff. But yeah, Punk and Lesnar SummerSlam is easily one of my favorite matches of all time.
Great choice.
Excellent
That's a good
choice.
choice. All right, so for me, when I was looking at my favorite matches, it was a challenge to narrow it down to two.
Oh, dude.
Bret Hart is my favorite wrestler. I did not include him in either of these matches, which is hard.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to swallow.
Yeah, for sure.
And we talk about Bret Hart a lot on this show when we're
For good
talking
reason.
about
Do we?
wrestling.
Yeah, not enough.
do we talk about? I was just gonna say, do we talk about him enough? Yeah.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Whenever we get to our Legacy series, Bret Hart, Stone Cold, we'll get to that. So for me, I looked at two things. One, the entertainment value of the match, the quality of the match, and then the storyline of the match, like Jones mentioned earlier. So for my two, the first match I chose, I'll go in reverse order. So my number one match, I'll talk about in a little bit. My number two match, WrestleMania 10, Intercontinental title. First major pay-per-view ladder match, so we're going back to the ladders. The bad guy, Razor Ramon, versus the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. Interesting story lead up to it. The self-proclaimed Intercontinental Champion was Shawn Michaels. The actual Intercontinental Champion was Razor Ramon. 2 belts. A lot of back and forth in previous months prior to this pay-per-view in terms of who was the actual champion. Shawn Michaels had come back from a short leave of absence. It may have been company mandated
Man,
or may not have been. So in his mind, he was still the champion. In Razor's mind, he was the champion. So it was the first major ladder match that was on, a major pay-per-view at WrestleMania. Even these two had prior ladder matches on TV and in dark shows, but it was the first time that any match really had brought the ladder into play. Two similar style guys, mid-card guys at this point in their careers. Great characters, great skill in the ring between the two of them. But to see them sort of go at it with basically all of it on the line. Shawn Michaels was backed by the one and only Big Daddy Cool Diesel.
That's right.
Future outsider.
Outsiders.
Paul and Nash.
Jeez.
Yes.
Oddly enough, he was also outside the ring for most of this match. That he was at the ring.
Maybe that was the origin.
That might have been. He might have been sitting there like, you know what, guys, you're inside this match, but I'm on the outside. Who knows? I'm just.
Yeah.
I'm connecting dots, everybody.
Yeah,
That's all I'm doing.
nobody
Connecting
really
dots.
knows.
Yeah.
There were some really great spots in this match. It wasn't a super long match, but there were a lot of great spots there. I went back and watched there was some video that the WWE put out a few years ago where it was Shawn and Scott Hall now
Yeah, it's a good video.
watching the match together, rewatching the match together,
cool.
and they're talking about it, and they're like, yeah, we're pretty sure this was the only ladder that was even in that building that day, and we were super concerned about breaking it or fucking it up because there's no way we were gonna get the belts down if the ladder didn't work.
Can you imagine if that actually happened? What would they have done?
I don't know.
Double disqualification, no contest.
Diesel comes back out,
and it wasn't
turns on Michaels. Razor gets on his shoulders. That's the only thing you can do at that point.
But you watch it back now, that ladder compared to more recent ladder matches, super fucking rickety, super small.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's that's just the ladder you typically throw in the back of your pickup truck to go fix something on the outside of your house or shit like that. But there were some great spots in this match. Some iconic shots. Shawn doing a frog splash off the top of the ladder.
Everybody remembers that.
Fucking fantastic. The back and forth on the top of the ladder and Razor giving him a suplex, but only letting him go and not himself go. Yeah. A lot of knocking each other off the ladder. We got to see Shawn Michaels' ass, which I'm sure Dave was super excited about.
Well, so, let's about that. So, first off, fine ass, Shawn, at that point in time. Fine ass indeed. I'm confident enough to be able to acknowledge a nice ass when I see one, whether it's Lita's or if it happens to be Shawn
I ain't judging
Michaels.
you.
Right. So you mentioned some good points there, Jeff, which I want to kind of point out here. Because you said this is the first real ladder match on a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
You're kind of
in
giving
front
it
of an audience,
in front of an audience, that size and everything. So you can almost say this is the official introduction of the ladder match into the wrestling lexicon, if to an extent. So some things happen that I noticed in the match that you brought up that we also kind of see happen in almost every subsequent ladder match, which includes somebody getting thrown off the ladder. A lot of times they're getting thrown off the ladder and onto the ropes.
Yep.
The guys simultaneously climbing the ladder and exchanging blows. To your point, somebody getting their tights pulled, because in the other ladder matches we have here, it happened in all of them. Rock's ass comes out a little bit. In the one that I talked about, we got full ass Shawn Michaels. And props to Shawn Michaels. In the middle of his ass, into everything that we get here. And this took place where? MSG, right?
Shows up again.
So all of New York City is enjoying a full moon inside this arena. And rather than Shawn being like, I'm going to go ahead and adjust my tights, no. Fucking off the ladder, fucking elbow drops, bare ass, and then decides to go, props to that for sure for being able to do that.
Sean
and
is a
having
real
thing.
big fan of having his ass shipped.
He is.
on
I'm
not saying he's
pay-per-view.
not.
Yeah.
I remember at WrestleMania 14, his trunks pulled down, he gets back body dropped onto Triple H.
Yeah.
Ass first.
Yeah, and I was going to mention it when you were talking about your ladder match.
Yeah.
That there are a lot of almost like shot for shot moves.
Oh yeah.
From one match to the next, and there's a lot to be said for the way that Razor and Sean conducted this match, and it was a great match all around.
And that's kind of my point. So if you guys like to give a little bit of a similar idea here, right? The King of the Ring tournament with Steve Austin, when we got That's the Bottom Line because Stone Cold said so and Austin 3:16, right? You have those iconic moments that really form the foundation of that character happen. In this ladder match, so many seminal moments that just keep appearing throughout big ladder matches in history happened here from those guys. And I think that's another way of acknowledging just how important this match is in the history of wrestling. Because of how people emulate it or emulate aspects of it almost every time. And to be able to come up with all of those, really in one of the first times that a lot of people maybe have done something like this, to that scale and everything, I think is a testament to this match as well.
So, I love this match. I loved it the first time I saw it, WrestleMania 10, I've watched when I was growing up. I had on tape. I had 1 through 13 on tape.
Yeah, WrestleMania X, as it was referred to,
was one of my favorite matches for a long time. So fun fact, so the very first WWF ladder match was Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels for the Intercontinental title. It was a Coliseum home video matchup from July of 1992. Fun fact, because Bret Hart's always right. It was Bret's idea because in Stampede Wrestling, ladder matches were a thing. And he came to Vince and said, I had this idea. This is what we used to do in Calgary. What do you think? And Vince is like, that sounds interesting enough. And Bret says, they talk about it. This is always from Bret's perspective, but no one's challenged it because it's probably fucking true. Vince tells Bret, that first time we do this on a mainstream stage, I'll make sure you're a part of it. Mm-hmm. Man, I didn't see Bret Hart in that match.
Nope. No. There was hearts in that match. It was just all over Sean's tights.
Yeah. But I don't know if you guys have ever watched that match, but
it's a different type of Montreal screw job.
I used to have it on tape years ago. I used to collect wrestling tapes when I was in middle school, high school. And I sold them all to my Spanish teacher because I had no money and I really needed money for something. I couldn't tell you what I bought. At this point, couldn't tell you now. But I'd watched all those tapes so much that I didn't need them anymore. In retrospect, I should have kept them all. But on this one particular Coliseum home video was this ladder match. It was a good match, 17 minutes long. You can find it. It's not on YouTube, but it's not on the network, of course. But you can find it on Daily Motion. It's still there, randomly on the internet. It's a good match.
It's awesome.
Last thing I want to say about this, because you mentioned Vince. Vince is doing commentary.
Oh my God, what a maneuver! Yeah.
So I have 2 observations from Vince, because like I told you, I watched each of these matches twice. Once to just take in the match, and then the other to kind of put my notes down and everything. So 2 things I noticed here about Vince. First off, how many fucking times is Vince going to sit there and say, I have never seen anything like this before? Which is like my Jerry Seinfeld of Vince McMahon to a little bit there. Seriously, it's like he's blowing himself during this match. Look what I came up with. This is my brainchild. Oh my God, you're never going to say anything like this.
Anything regarding Shawn Michaels, Vince has a hard-on for.
Oh, yeah.
And it shows in this match.
Yeah.
To be fair, it was a good match.
Yeah.
But Vince McMahon, I got love for him as an announcer. I do. Because he's a part of my childhood. But he's not great at it. He's not great. He's very, did you see that? Oh, look at that. Only the WWF, you're going to see the action like this. Did you even say anything? You didn't say anything. What are you even talking about? But to the match.
Right.
The match is excellent. And to the point you both brought up, Mac, it is an important match because it did set the stage for an entire generation of fans and eventual wrestlers to emulate what they saw.
Yep.
You'd never seen anything like this on pay-per-view. This was not a thing that people watched. So this was a big deal. And to jump back to a couple matches ago, I think it was you mentioned how engaged the fans at MSG can be.
Yeah.
The big deal is, and we've talked about this, we've all talked about this, the big difference is there were no cell phones or smartphones to distract people. You literally
It's
had
all
what
in.
was in front of you.
Yep.
And so you took in every fine detail, and that was it. That was all you had. So you had no choice. Either that or you just left.
Yeah.
You know, like, you be
Yeah.
entertained or leave.
Yep.
So,
Because, I mean, you go to a show now, you either have your phone up or you're chanting something that isn't even necessarily relevant.
This is awesome. This that's not awesome.
Yeah. Whereas then it's like, okay, there's no distractions. There's just what's going on in the ring. And you're fully invested in one or the other. And, I will give all the flowers to Scott Hall. Like, the final shot of the match, he puts the ladder back
so
up. He's
cool.
holding
It's
both
still cool
belts
to
up
this day.
at the top. And it's like, fuck, that guy should have got a championship
fucking-
at some point in his career.
him falling after he got the belts off, like that was 20 feet up in the air for him to just go ahead and just drop flat on his back like it was nothing.
Yes.
Right?
Scott Hall, we've also, again, we should do an episode on who, like, people who were never heavyweight champion who should have been. Scott Hall is the top of the list.
Yeah,
People who
absolutely.
at least one solid run as the WWF heavyweight champion. What should have happened is because they had a rubber match at SummerSlam, the two of them, Shawn beat him. Razor should have just went on, become heavyweight champion, or at least get in the picture. And they never did it. And unless he had his demons, he was maybe not reliable, and obviously that showed over the years, which is unfortunate, because goddamn, he had the size.
He had it all, the
He had
look.
the look. He had the charisma. He had that intangible thing, like Rock comes out at SummerSlam 98, Razor Ramon comes out at WrestleMania 10 or X. There's a thing that they have that no one else has.
Yep.
It's just that X factor
Yeah,
that
it's
people
part
talk
of their
about.
persona.
And he's dripping it. He's oozing it. He's perfect at it.
Oozing machismo, they'd
Yep.
say.
And I remember when I was a little kid, I mean, everybody had at least one friend who had the toothpick and they'd flick it at you because they're being a dick. But Razor Ramon was that inspiration.
Well, that's because good times don't last, but bad guys do.
You looked off into the distance like you had a very particular person in
I know
mind.
exactly what I'm
about
talking
the
about.
toothpick
You know who
flick.
you are.
So, Jones, you mentioned your affinity for Vince as an announcer, right?
Yeah, that's what I
So,
said.
have you ever seen those videos? You ever see those videos online when somebody has like a watermelon or something, and they start putting rubber bands around it?
Yes.
And they want to see how many rubber bands it's going to take before the watermelon explodes?
Yes.
Vince McMahon's octaves as he's doing commentary on these matches sounds like a group of Keebler elves are under the desk putting rubber bands around his testicles, because I don't understand how his voice gets that way. And then as soon as the rubber band bursts, he goes, just right
He's
down
all
into
over the
Vince.
place. You're
Yeah.
right.
That's all. I had to get that note in.
Thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
He's a billionaire now.
bless him.
That motherfucker got thrown out of his own company, and then 5
He
months
forced
later
his way
came
back
back,
in.
forced his way back in.
They're like, okay, welcome
at
back.
the expense of his daughter.
Yeah. She's like, fuck this.
Fuck, man, Jesus.
Also, last thing I'm going to say about this match,
Yeah.
how wild it is, because Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon, and Diesel are all best friends. They're the clique. They're traveling buddies at this point.
Yep.
You know, they are boys. They're starting to build up and run the show a little bit in the backstage. It's all very storied, the clique. A year later, Shawn Michaels and Diesel are wrestling for the heavyweight title at WrestleMania 11. Motherfuck, man. A year later. Diesel's always on his way out. Razor's on his way out.
Paving their way.
And then the
for the
wrestling world changes.
New world order.
It just changes. Seriously, like, 3 really important guys in the ring in this one match.
Yep.
Really important human beings. And to the history, to what we ended up watching and enjoying. If you'd have told me If you'd have told me in 1994 that Razor Ramon and Diesel will be two of the biggest stars in wrestling, I'm like, oh, okay, sure, I can believe that. But not in the way you think.
Not in the way. Not in that way, yeah.
But it makes sense, though, if you think about it. Like, history is littered with situations of great people that are just drawn to each other, right? Like, when you look at, like, the 70s film school at USC, fucking Martin Scorsese was there, Steven Spielberg was there, George Lucas was there, there's a couple guys whose names I'm even just kind of forgetting off the top of my head, but like they were all film buddies. Like they just sat there in class and critiqued each other's work. And then like the last 50 years of cinema has been defined by them, right? It makes sense that Diesel and Hall and Michaels and Triple H and those guys would all gravitate towards each other. Just like, from a chance meeting at a toy store led 3 individuals to find out a mutual friend that was into wrestling, and then 20 years later, you're listening to this podcast as a result of it. Greatness attracts greatness, gentlemen.
Oh, man, listen to you.
Yeah,
That's right.
I know those guys.
Yeah. So history littered with it. I
believe you're up, Mac.
Before I go ahead and talk about my second match here, everybody, what's everyone drinking today?
Oh, man.
Oh, we're a little late in the game here.
An hour later.
I'm drinking another Southern Tier, surprise. It's a new haze. And it's good.
It sounds great.
It's good.
I can't wait to crack one of those
It's
right
delicious.
now.
Those real good beers that
Yeah.
you're drinking. I am drinking Double Broken Heels Hazy Double IPA from New Trail Brewing.
And I, because I enjoyed so much of it last time, I'm sticking with the cock this week and drinking my second Suck My Cockachino beer, Cocachino, actually, and a Coca-Cola. I'm kind of going back and forth. Cock and Coke, Coke and cock. Just,
Sounds like a Saturday night, man.
Yeah, tomato.
Right, let's call the whole thing off. All right. So, second match that I have here is one we've actually talked about on this podcast because it goes into one of my Back to the Favorite Feuds episode, available in the archives, is one of the visually most infamous matches in probably the history of wrestling. And that takes us to WrestleMania 17, TLC.
TLC 2, technically.
Yeah. Hardy's versus Dudley's versus Edge and Christian at the Houston Astrodome. A 15-minute and 50-second match. 9 participants, 6 that you know of, 3 that you don't. Again, visually... So we talked about... I think what I like about this match is it's really different than the first one that I picked. Because the first one that I picked is a slow build. There's not a lot of spots. There's a story that's being told in the ring between these two performers. A lot of ring psychology, and it works beautifully as a match.
But they both have ladders.
They do.
So are they that different?
We're getting to that.
Okay.
One has ladders. The other has tables and chairs with
And
those
ladders.
ladders.
Yes.
Yeah.
Far more ladders, far more tables, far more chairs.
If you go to Moonlit Burger,
yes,
and get a burger, and then you go to Red Robin and get a burger, you're getting burgers, but are you really getting the same burger?
It's not the same.
It's not the same, exactly. So, but in this match, it's basically all spots.
Mm-hmm.
My first note on this match was, this match is complete mayhem.
It is complete mayhem.
And it takes 5 to 8 minutes before we see any tables, ladders, or chairs.
Which is interesting because I decided to, on my third watch of this one, to kind of take some statistics. How many ladders are involved in this match? How many chairs are involved in this match? How many tables? How many chair shots? How many ladder shots are involved, right? So, to set the stage here, everybody, we have, it is for the WWF Tag Team Championship. We have the Dudley Boys, veterans in the tag team world, out of ECW, out
Defending
of everywhere,
champs.
defending champs. And you got 2 up-and-coming tag teams. Youngins in the industry, looking to make a name for themselves. And boy, oh boy, do they make a name for themselves. And that would be the Hardy Boys, Matt and Jeff. I don't want to say before all the drugs, but probably at least early
Did you
on
guys
in
hear
the
the
drugs.
latest from Jeff Hardy as of this week?
God,
No.
no.
0 jail time.
Oh,
His driver's license is suspended for 10 years, and he is cleared to go back to work at his leisure.
no kidding.
Yeah.
Just not in Canada.
Whether Tony Khan is going to pick him back up or not,
That man needs to stay away from
and
wrestling.
we shall see. But he can wrestle if he wants to, I guess is
Yeah.
the judge order.
Yeah.
Man's been through some shit.
Yeah.
Self-inflicted.
And in this match, he's literally through a lot of shit in this match. But you got Matt and Jeff, and then you've got a broodless brood with Edge and Christian. A couple of kids from
No Gangrel.
couple of kids with big dreams from Canada.
Big dreams, big glasses.
Both looking like what I would expect a vampire hunter from the video game Castlevania to look like, but in real life. It's always been my thing with Edge and Christian. Go ahead and paint that picture for yourselves. So, triple threat tag team match. Everybody's just in the ring. Belts, again, up high. Another common thing with a ladder match, everybody, is that we have to have the camera above the belts to make sure we get that shot of when people are climbing the ladders and they're struggling.
Yeah, pre-ladder matches, we didn't get any sort of overhead aerial shots.
Yeah.
But once ladder matches became a thing, that became pretty common.
But these three tag teams just going at each other for basically a year and a half at this time.
They might still be going at it. I don't even know.
Could you imagine just like randomly going to like a Giant Eagle parking lot at like 11:30 at night, and like Devon is yelling, or Bubba Ray's yelling at Devon to go get the tables, and he just like pops the trunk open in his pickup truck, and there's a fucking table. And then Christian's like climbing on top. Like, could you just imagine the mind? Like, you could sit there and tell everybody you know what you saw, and nobody would fucking.
Oh, they wouldn't believe a word of that.
Nobody would believe you. Like, if I would be like Bubba Ray and like walk up and like grab somebody by the shirt, like, go ahead and tell everybody. No one will fucking believe you. And then boom, like Matt Hardy goes through a chair, goes through a table, right? So this is not a scientific calculation with this match, but by my estimation, watching this, we have 5 ladders that were used in this match, 5 chairs that were used in this match, and 7 tables that were used in this match. By my calculation, there were about 20 or so ladder shots throughout the course of this match. 7 distinct chair shots. And 8 tables. Well, 8 table shots, 7 of which the tables were broken. There was one point where somebody just got thrown off the table and it didn't break, but I didn't know if I wanted to include that or not. But, going on technicalities, we have to go ahead and do that.
Still counts.
But if you want to go ahead and kind of look at what that is, basically 25, 30, 40, 43 element pieces in a 15-minute match, which basically means, if you're doing the math, you're looking at about 3+ elements of this tables, ladders, and chairs match. Every minute of the match, you're watching this.
Sure. All right.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Fuck. And like you said, there's about 5 minutes in the match before they actually go ahead and start bringing the elements into it. They all start in the ring.
Yeah. Then it's nonstop. Like, we're stacking ladders, we're stacking chairs, we're stacking tables, we're stacking chairs on ladders and ladders on tables, and everybody's getting fucked up.
Everybody's getting fucked up.
Yeah.
So much so that the 6 contestants in the ring can't be everything you have in this match, because we need to add a few more people to give everybody else an opportunity.
How many more do we need to add?
3.
So many people.
So many people. Because each tag team at this point has another piece to that group right now that is not in the match. And it starts with everybody's favorite 150-pound soaking wet Spike Dudley.
Oh, good old Spike. The run of the litter.
Yep. And Spike comes into the ring and just... what do you call a move?
Acid drop in ECW. I don't know if they were calling that in WWF, but it's called the acid drop.
Yeah. But he does 2 consecutive acid drops. One in which he is in the ring, and he does that to I should have made a note.
One of the many long-haired people.
What's not? Yeah.
You'd have to do 2 acid drops to make sense of it all.
And then the second one was Christian, and he does the acid drop from Christian basically off the top turnbuckle and out of the ring through a table. When I was watching this match with Stephanie, because she's like, I really don't want to watch wrestling right now. I'm like, you're going to sit down and watch this one. Because, as you said, it's total mayhem. Mm-hmm. I'm like, Steph, watch how Bubba Ray and Devon set up 4 tables on top of each other outside the match, 4 minutes in, and then wait for the next 10 or 12 minutes for it to pay off.
Right.
Because so much of this match was just as much of setting up for the shit to kind of happen as it is for the actual things to happen. Because it's really one of those, we're going to go ahead and do this, and we're going to let you forget about it for a little bit. Because that table that Spike put Christian through was set up out there about 7 minutes before he actually went through it.
Sounds about right.
So we have that. And then, if I remember correctly, it was Rhino who comes in second.
Yes.
Correct.
So Rhino, of course, is with Edge and Christian at this point.
Because why not?
Because why not? Probably the unsung hero of this match. Probably the MVP of the match.
He won the match for them.
Was Rhino. Yeah, exactly. In numerous situations. And then, of course, we have Lita, who comes in third. And, of course, Paul Heyman is one of the commentators on this. Lita does a move. She does the top rope Hurricane Rana, and then gets up, does what the Hardys do, takes her shirt off. Paul Heyman in great, late 1990s WWE, take it all off, and then of course, then she goes that prompts her right into a 3D.
Oh, so good.
Oh, so good.
Listen,
Yeah, that the 3D on Lita was pretty brutal.
It was.
Listen, they're good at doing 3Ds to ladies, man.
Yeah.
Ask Beulah McKillicuddy, she'll tell you. So, as a side note from me, watching this match, the bonus to watching this match, the bonus of clicking on this pay-per-view is because it is customary. If you touch WrestleMania 17, if you come anywhere close to it, you must watch the Rock and Austin promo video. If you don't watch it, are you even a fan? Fuck yourself. No, you're not a fan. So, of course, I sat and watched it because it's the greatest video promo of all time.
Yeah, you're already there.
God, it was so good. It was so good.
Yeah.
It told everything you needed to see and then some and put emotion behind it. But anyhow, I digress. Back to the match. This was peak WWF, man.
It was.
Like 2001, this was it. We went downhill after this year because Austin turns heel that night. Just fucking murders the business.
Yeah.
He should have never turned heel. He admitted it as such, but that changed everything. The one constant we had was a babyface Steve Austin.
Yeah.
That was the money. That's what people wanted to see. But this match, it's funny. This is the first match I watched when I went to go watch all that. So I was fired up, Whew! There's a lot of shit happening in this match, man.
There's a lot. There's a lot going on.
You gotta learn. You learn a little bit about your friends by their favorite matches. I learned that Dave really likes ladder matches.
This
he likes gimmick matches a lot.
I think I'm going to say coincidence because
he's a big edge guy. So I think that has a lot to do with it.
Well, I was teetering between this and there was a match between Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho from WrestleMania 19 that I was really going with. And I was almost going to do Rock Austin 17 instead of this. I was going back and forth amongst those three. Which, again, ladies and gentlemen, favorite matches part 1. So I was like, yeah, fuck it. We'll talk about some of these other ones later on.
We'll get to it.
For me, there are 3 visuals in this match, besides Lita's tits, that to me are just, if you put on, if you go ahead and like say to somebody who's maybe never seen wrestling before, and you put together like a highlight reel of like shit that happens in like the history of wrestling, right? Austin and Bret Hart, Hogan body slamming Andre. There are visuals from this pay-per-view that often duplicated, never quite reproduced to the same, because you've got number 1. A Jeff Hardy swanton from a 20-foot ladder through a table that puts both Rhino and Spike down First off, again watching that, I kind of wrote to myself, why the fuck would you do that to
There
yourself?
are some really stupid bumps that they make
Oh,
in
there's
this match.
quite a few of them.
Horribly stupid bumps in that, right? Number 2, Rhino pushing Matt Hardy and Bubba Ray off the ladder in the middle of the ring, catapulting them at least 40 feet through the set of 4 tables that are outside the ring.
Yeah.
Done, 20 minutes, 15 minutes earlier in the match before it happens. Because, again, watching that, how fucking stupid is this that if you don't time that jump right for those 2 guys, do you even practice that? It's like
you don't practice that.
It's like Mick Foley going off the top of Hell in a Cell because if he misses, and Mick almost misjudged,
Yeah.
but and just a small,
The margin of error is so small.
so thin, right? Unfortunately, they both hit it perfectly. And then, of course, what shows up on every single highlight video and intro and promo in the history of wrestling,
The spear.
is the spear, right?
That could have gone really differently.
You've got-
But here's the thing, we've talked about 3 ladder matches now. And at what point did something happen where the belts are so strong that when you grab them,
Yeah,
they do not come unlatched?
right.
Because there are 3 spots in this match where they're just fucking hanging from the belts and the
Yes.
ladders are gone. And one, like you just mentioned, is Jeff Hardy getting fucking
Yeah.
speared
Yeah.
off of a ladder while he's dangling from a belt 15 feet in the air.
Yeah, and actually too, because Bubba Ray is kind of pulling the ladder away from Jeff to get him to start swinging, so that when he's able to swing forward, so Edge doesn't have to go really as far out to make that spear. Because you see when he does it, Jeff is in the forward swing with his momentum going towards Edge, and fucking props.
Yeah, so they don't die.
Yeah.
Fucking
Yeah.
props to Edge, because if you watch that, and again, I watched it 3 times, the control he had from the point that he makes
You have to.
contact
You'll
with
break
Jeff
dude's fucking neck
all
if
the
you
way
don't.
down to the ground was so perfect that neither one of them, theoretically got hurt. At least not to the point that they couldn't continue.
Right.
Which easily somebody could have fucked that up, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's just, there's no rotation for Jeff once he gets hit. They're both perfectly in control the entire way to the ground.
Yeah, Edge really, not carries him, but he helps him out.
Oh,
there a lot.
he really took care of him, and rightfully so, because you're putting your career at the line in line.
But in
at risk for that.
hindsight, the amount of stupid fucking bumps that Jeff Hardy took over the course of his career, including all these TLC matches,
Yeah.
realistically, that had to contribute to all of his personal problems.
I'm sure on
I
some
mean,
Without
level,
a doubt.
Yeah, I
This-
mean,
this-
your body hurts. You gotta numb the pain somehow, and he numbs it every way he can.
But it's a fucking spectacle at WrestleMania.
Yeah,
the spot where he attempts to walk across the ladder.
Across the ladders,
Yeah.
And I'm like, brother, I don't know what you think you're about
Yeah.
to do here. You're
I've
not
seen
Kofi
White-
Kingston, motherfucker.
Yeah, I've seen Wipeout enough times to know what happens when you hit the second big ball.
Yeah.
You're going to get fucked up.
yeah.
I'm so
So
glad it
don't do
didn't
that
work
on a
out.
ladder. That is
I wonder
not...
I wonder what was going to be the ultimate spot there, ultimately, but we'll never know, thank God.
Because the thing is, if you look at all the elements, the tables, ladders, and chairs, the table is the most forgiving thing,
Yeah.
and it's not very forgiving.
No.
No, and that brings a really good point, because of all the things that happen in this match, there is one that I saw and I literally went, oh, shit. And that was Lita's chair shot to the head of Spike.
She swung.
She swung, and the way that chair hit, it was his face did not hit the flat part that you sit on in the chair. It hit the area between the back of the chair and the actual flat part with it folded. And you could actually, if you slow it down enough, you could actually see Spike's face partially go through the
Yeah.
gap.
It's like, what's that movie, The Frighteners, where the ghost
Yeah.
pushes its face through the thing?
Yeah.
That's what the chair
That
looked
was
like
actually
with Spike's face.
That was actually Spike's face when that happened.
There was this weird, very dangerous period between 1997 and 2002.
It was
2001,
reckless.
where like
It was really
chair
reckless.
shots were horrible.
Yeah.
Like horrible. Like everybody remembers Ken Shamrock getting hit in the head by The Rock with the chair on Monday Night Raw, and he hit him. I mean, laid
Just
into
square.
him, and that noise still. I remember the noise his skull made against the chair. I know people are like, oh, wrestling's fake, motherfucker. Let somebody do that to you. You ain't doing that.
Nope.
Now for six figures, you'll do it.
I don't even know if I do it for 6.
But to the point, like
Worth it.
What Spike did to him, what she did to him, I get them all mixed up, was significant. You know what else was significant? The winners of this match,
Yeah.
because I'm pretty sure they said it, and I'm pretty sure I remember like so this TLC match is not my favorite. The first one is technically not my favorite, even though it was the first TLC match. My favorite it was only the Hardys and Edge and Christian. It was that ladder match they had that started the whole thing. It was like the Terry Runnels Invitational, whatever the hell it was. And that match, to me, that like set the stage. Like they had kept having to top what they did.
Yep.
Like, they keep topping what they did.
Yeah, how do you one up it as
And
you keep getting more extreme?
Yeah.
Because the TLC, the last one was the WrestleMania of the previous year, right? 16. Excellent match. That's when Jeff Hardy came off that big ass ladder with the swanton in the stage area.
Right.
Which I'll never forget that. This match was excellent too, but it was almost like chaos for chaos' sake.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah, the stakes didn't feel that high.
Because it was like, okay,
It was more the spectacle of it.
But that's why I think that's why I kind of chose
But
this.
it's entertaining as hell.
It's the spectacle. I don't know that I've seen a wrestling match where the spectacle was like before or since that could really kind of, because anything else, I think at this point, if they're trying to top that 43 elemental shots in 15 minutes, like it's almost too much to like logically.
Yeah.
We've seen gimmick matches in TNA, we've seen gimmick matches in AEW and ECW and Ring of Honor and everything else, and it's just like this almost like set the cap. Like if you try to go beyond this, like I can't
It's
even
too much. Yeah.
I can't even believe it at this point.
I can't.
I understand the mechanics and I know how the sausage is made and all this, and I'm still not buying it.
Yeah.
So, but that's why I chose this, because it's entertaining as hell.
Oh yeah.
It was. And it helped elevate Edge and Christian,
Yeah,
with the win in this match.
absolutely.
From a tag team perspective, and then obviously they both went on to their individual things a few years later. But all in all, a super entertaining match.
Oh yeah. You got 6 first round Hall of Famers in that match,
Yeah.
without question, which is awesome.
Well, I mean, Lita 7.
Well, yeah. Well, I meant who actually wrestled.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And I mean, today, kind of looking back on things, Rhino is even looked at such a different light.
Rhino was good.
Always was,
In
but I
an
mean-
alternate timeline, Rhino was heavyweight champion once in the WWF. One good time, because he had one in him.
Yeah.
If they'd approached it the right way, because he was a big deal in ECW. Goddamn it.
Was.
I remember Rhino. You know what else I remember? Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect, 1991. Look, so look, this match means a lot to me. I didn't see it live. In 1991, I was my parents were not doing pay-per-views. That shit was not happening. I didn't see this match until like 94 on VHS. I would say it's like a best of SummerSlam or something or other. I came across it, and I was like, this is this. Everybody has a match that if you knew somebody who was teetering on maybe watching wrestling at some point, there's a match that you would show them. This is that match for me. It wasn't personal. The title was the motivation.
Yeah.
What title was it, Jones?
Well, I'm glad you asked. The workhorse title, the Intercontinental Heavyweight Championship.
The Intercontinental Championship match?
That's right.
We're talking about the Intercontinental Championship?
Again.
Again? Where did this match take place, Jones?
I'm glad you asked that. Oh, man, I think it was Madison Square Garden.
Madison.
Oh,
Intercontinental Championship match?
It was.
In Madison
At
Square
Madison Square Garden?
Garden. Again.
Again?
You know what else is important about that night?
What's that?
Macho Man and Elizabeth wedding.
That's right.
Boy, it's an important day for wrestling fans all over the world. I think at that point they were already divorced too. In real life.
It was for TV. We all know.
So
Wait, it's not real? God, they learned those lines so well.
So this is like, to me, when I think of wrestling in the 90s, I think of Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan. God damn it. Will you stop? True. There is something about them together makes me happy. It brings out joy listening to them banter back and forth, and how Gorilla would just get so frustrated with Bobby Heenan constantly, and how Bobby's just egging him on.
He knew how to push
but
it.
he'd back off at the last second.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah.
But this being one of my favorite, this is genuinely one of my favorite matches of all time, and I wrote so little because I didn't know what to say to it, because it's not like there was like some crazy build up. There's no a major angle. Brett was the number one contender for the Intercontinental title. I couldn't tell you what the build up was. I tried to find out what the build up was. I don't think there really was any. It was like, well, Mr. Perfect's Intercontinental champion.
It's your turn. You get a shot.
Brett's number one contender for the Intercontinental title. Mr. Perfect's like, I am perfect. You're not taking it. But behind the scenes, Perfect had a really bad back, which makes this match even fucking better, because he was bumping all over the place. The respect, because they were boys, they were real friends, and the fact that Perfect didn't have to be so generous with Brett, he didn't have to feed him so much with the bumping all over the place. Which actually, I didn't bring up this point. I'm going to bring it back to CM Punk and Lesnar. Props to Lesnar for being so generous with Punk. He made him look fucking good.
He did.
But anyhow, this match to me is hard hitting. It's technical, but not too much. It has a little bit of everything. It gets a little brawly at certain points, but not too much. But more importantly, talking about a coming out party, this is Brett's moment.
Yep.
And an audience that, for some reason, New York loves Bret Hart. They always have. They always have.
Because they're good. It's New York knows wrestling.
They do.
It has a smart wrestling. I mean, for forever, Madison Square Garden was the home of the WWF.
100%.
And
the New York territory.
That territory, like we talk about how Chicago knows Chicago. You know, when there's an event going on in Chicago, you know it's going to be good, because Chicago wrestling fans are smart. They try to have limited tolerance for bullshit. New York's the same way. They just know, and the wrestlers know they know.
Isn't that the first? The show from Highlander was in New York.
Yeah, it was a wrestling. Yeah, it was a wrestling show at MSG. Yeah, exactly.
Look, I don't know if I've ever watched a single match more than this one. I've watched this match. It has to be. It's easily double digits, with well into the double digits. Because I would watch this match and I would just study it, because there was a period when I was really young that I'm like, oh, I'm going to be a wrestling commentator. That's what I wanted to do when I was really young. I was like, I can do this, and I would watch wrestling matches. And I would just study why they were doing what they were doing, because I felt like to be a play-by-play, screw the color commentator, which they have their place, but to be a play-by-play man, to call out the moves, why they're doing it, how they're doing it, like the body parts, I thought that was so cool. But this match, man, Mr. Perfect, yet another guy who should have been heavyweight champion at least one good time. One good time. Never got that shot that I know of. I don't think he's ever. I'm sure he had a heavyweight title shot, but I have no recollection of a single one.
Yeah,
which is wild if you think about it.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, him and Scott Hall were tag team partners, tag team champions in AWA together way back in the day.
Oh, wow.
Fun fact. It's all connected. But this, Bret Hart's the first guy to kick out of the Perfect Plex. Again, that's respect that Kurt Hennig has for him to do something like that. There was no cooler move in 1991 than the Perfect Plex.
Yeah, that was a big deal.
Talking how you mentioned, Jones, about how, that Mr. Perfect, bad back, respect he had for Bret, didn't have to take the bumps he did. You could also see that he trusted Bret.
Yeah,
I don't think you see this match if it's somebody other than Bret Hart doing it, because Bret is so crisp. Yeah. He's so just technically sound. When you kind of see how that when the match starts, there's a lot of headlocks and holds and things like that. Bret's quick. It's quicker than Perfect.
Yep.
He's getting thrown out and he comes right back to it, brings him right back down, and you could tell that there's there's just an element of trust there where he knows whatever we're going to do, I know you're not going to put me at risk to get anything else fucked up. So I'm going to give you a lot more in this.
I agree. So Bret Hart, and I mean, we don't talk about Bret enough. Like you made a very valid point. We don't.
Yeah.
So this match, like, it almost makes you feel like it's real. Like, it's just hard hitting enough. It's so physical.
Yeah.
There's no BS. There's no flippity floppities. There's some questionable perfect bumps that he likes to flourish a little bit, but it makes it work. We got two guys about the same size, about the same age, but one is ahead of the other one. Bret Hart, in my opinion, he is the greatest of all time. There's that little meme that Bret was right. To me, like, this match, like, Bret was right. Like, he was the right fit for this. He was the Intercontinental Tag Team Champion 2 times. This is his first Intercontinental run. More importantly, how mean was that sharpshooter transition? How mean was that? Because that was so good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'd ever seen one up until that point. Again, I didn't see this until like 94-ish. I want to say it's 94. It might have been 95, but I feel confident it was 94.
Different times, right?
Yeah.
We couldn't just rewatch matches.
No, it really couldn't. But, like, I remember sitting down trying to show my dad this match. Like, Dad, you have to see this match, Dad. This match, this is real. I'm telling you. Look how hard they're hitting each other.
Yeah.
He's like, sure, whatever. But like, that's how much these guys made you believe what you were watching. Because the beauty of wrestling isn't, like you said, how the sausage is made. It's predetermined. It's fake on a certain level. But every so often you go, no, but that was real though. That he really stiffed him on that one.
Yeah. We got him good on that one.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of wrestling to me, right? To go, no, but I mean, are they mad at each other for real though? Like, because I feel like he took some liberties on him that time. That's the beauty of wrestling.
Yeah.
And this is a match where, like, you could almost wonder, like, are they kind of jacked at each other a little bit? Because they're hitting each other pretty fucking hard.
Yeah. What I loved about this match, and I didn't know any of the build-up leading up to it. It was just another match.
Right.
But they sort of positioned it as perfection versus excellence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So good.
They're both, even though they're mid-card guys at this point in their careers, they're still, like, at the top of the mid-card.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And there was such back and forth, and there were certain spots in the match where, like, it felt personal. Like,
yes.
And it felt real, like you're saying. Like, you could tell the anger and the frustration, like, as they were wrestling and there were counters and everything else. And you could see them getting angry, and you're like, oh, yeah, this is 100%
and when you're like 9 years old, you're like, oh, this is really happening, man. Like, they're really jacked at each other.
Yeah.
The other stuff was fake, but this right here, this could be really happening in front of our very eyes.
You're like,
it's not.
Yeah, Perfect's so mad. He's throwing his one shoulder
so
off.
Like,
he's so
fired
mad.
up.
Yeah.
Like, the spot, one of my favorite spots in wrestling, period. And it's only a thing that Bret and Perfect really do. You don't see anybody else do it. Is Perfect throws Bret by the hair, just throws him fucking across the ring.
Yeah. He ragdolls him a few times.
He's a grown man. He just threw.
Yeah, threw a grown man.
So
it's like deja vu.
Yeah, he's like 17 kids. He threw a grown ass man.
So as this is the first time I've ever saw this match.
Is it?
It is.
Ever?
Yeah,
God,
first time I ever saw
I'm
it.
excited for it.
Yeah. So this is the first time I ever saw it.
What'd you think of it?
It's fantastic. There was one thing. So I said I watched it twice. First time I watched it, I had to make a note because again, early on, just trying to figure out what it is. A lot of hair pulling in this match.
Oh yes,
there's a lot of hair pulling.
A lot of that.
Which again, you can't fake hair pulling. You know,
they snatching each other up.
There are things in life that you can't fake. If you spit on somebody, can't fake that.
No,
right?
To me, true.
That's pure ignorance, right? I always say, if somebody ever spits on you, you have full permission to punch that person in the face as hard as you want. Doesn't matter who it is. You have full permission to do it. Hair pulling, again, you can't fake. But I also noticed, and the comment that I made here was that, I haven't seen this much hair pulling since Lord of the G-Strings. So, and it's like, it's a little funny comment. I'll maybe go ahead and toss it in the podcast or anything. And then, just a few minutes later, Hart's ripping off Perfect's tights a little bit, ripping it down and everything. So, well, fuck, they're tripping. This is Lord of the G-Strings. So, That's my own little thing. But it was so good. Like I said, the crispness of the movements, the elements where, you know, like you said, when Brett's ragdolling perfect and throwing him around and everything, the rolling, the hitting, it doesn't look clean.
Nope.
But because of that, you know that's two professionals at the top of their game, because they're making you believe, as you said, 9-year-old Herb is looking at this like, no, this is real. Because if you threw a guy in wrestling, he's going to lay flat and everything's going to be all right. If you did it to a real person, they're going to roll a little bit. They're going to hit awkwardly.
Yep.
Right? And that's what you're getting in this match. You know, it's beautiful in elements of its ugliness.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like the crowd was ready for it. Obviously, pro Bret Hart. They're almost always pro Bret Hart.
Yeah, it was pretty wild because, like, if you didn't know where this pay-per-view took place and you're watching it and you hear and feel the crowd, like, you think this is a Canadian crowd, like, no doubt. And Stu Hart is there in the audience, and, you know, obviously after the sharpshooter and Bret gets the win, he goes and hugs his parents.
Chill, wait, hold on.
And it's like,
Oh, yeah.
Did you?
I know.
Sweet Jesus!
Oh, God.
Tell me you watched that. The
Oh,
whole
please.
what's that?
Thing. Oh,
Oh, come on.
Yo, I got
Oh.
lightheaded. How hard I laughed.
Just, you want to reenact it, Jones?
Wait, who do you want to be?
I'll be the who I didn't get the name of the
Lord
commentator.
Alfred Hayes.
Yeah, I'll be Hayes.
Okay,
Yeah.
wait, hold on, sweet Jesus. Yo, hold on, I gotta compose myself. So, I'm assuming you watched the end of the match and then you stopped it.
Correct.
You didn't
Okay.
watch Bret go up to Stu and get the hug, did
Go
you?
into the audience to go hug his parents.
So while this is happening, I'm gonna set the stage. The crowd's popped. Everybody's
Going
Oh, yeah,
nuts.
the crowd is hot.
Going nuts.
They were ready for Bret to finally be a single star. It's so cool. Like, look, man, Bret Hart was right. Anyhow, so you got Lord Alfred Hayes, who's, you know, he's been around, and you got Stu and Helen up there.
Because he's a lord.
Well, you know.
You know.
And Lord Alfred Hayes is like, oh, you know, Bret, you know, Stu and Helen, they're excited for their son, blah blah blah. I'm gonna get a word from Stu. He's trying to get Stu's attention,
Yeah.
right? And he's old as shit at this point, right? He's already old.
Still fucking-
Listen, and everything that I'm gonna say
It's as awkward as
this-
Bret Hart's
this-
sister interview.
Okay. No,
Better. Oh, so
this
much
is
better.
all I have nothing
Yeah.
but respect for Stu Hart and what he's contributed to the wrestling world. So I'm saying this because the shit's fucking funny. So Alfred's trying to get his attention, right? And Stu's like clapping, you know, blah blah blah. They were just excited, you know, and then Bret rolls up.
Blissfully unaware of what's actually going on because he's watching his son in the match and everything.
The biggest match of his fucking
He's
life.
not paying attention to the ring guy and the camera crew that's just right fucking on top of him.
Now Stu Hart, I don't know if you ever heard Stu talk. Everybody has a Stu Hart impersonation. I'm gonna get that little motherfucker. That Stu Hart has a very specific voice.
Yeah.
So Bret comes up, they hug him. Lord Alfred Hayes is still trying to get Stu's fucking attention.
Really trying to get his
So,
attention.
as you were, Dave.
Ladies and gentlemen, we just want to get a brief word here with Stu Hart. Stu, your son. Wait, no, we're trying to get a word here with Stu Hart. Brett's coming up here. He's hugging his family. Stu, can we get a word? Stu, your son just won the Intercontinental Championship. How do you feel about all this? Okay, and that's it for Stu Hart.
I swear to God! He goes, and he just cuts the fuck off.
Cuts him right off, and Stu's still talking. He's still talking. He's got a full thought about this, and he's ready to share it with the world. And just Lord Alfred Hayes is just right back to the camera. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the immortal words from the great Stu Hart. And Stu is still like, should I try to tap him on his shoulder like I'm not fucking done yet?
And Alfred's like, he's just choked up with words. He's like, no, motherfucker, just cut him off.
He said 2 syllables.
That sounds great.
He said,
Back to you.
I don't know what he said.
2 syllables came out of his mouth, and then he quickly pulled the microphone away and went right back into it. It was the build-up because he spent like 2 minutes of camera time trying to get Stu's attention. And then literally it's like, can I have a word? 1 word. And there you have it.
Dude, it wasn't even a word.
No, it wasn't.
It was a noise.
Just
It was a
grunt.
grunt.
He said,
Yeah.
just pulled it away. So, oh, you guys just say it's too hard. So he's just choked up with words. It's so emotional. Like, it's still just.
It's Stu's still talking.
That's
Oh
fucking
my God.
beautiful.
Still talking.
I
Like-
saw that and I was in fucking
Oh
tears.
my God.
I was like, sweet Jesus, we gotta talk about this. Oh my God.
It was.
And I wrote, literally at the last thing I wrote, Lord Alfred Hayes did Stu dirty on this interview.
He did him real dirty.
Oh, I needed that laugh.
Jesus Christ.
You gotta go
Yeah,
back and
it's
just watch
worth
that.
going back and just watching. Just watch the last 3 minutes of the match and let
Oh my
the
God.
build up go right into it. Because about 10 minutes into the match, because this was again longest match of the night for that pay per view.
Was it really?
It was about 18, close to 19 minutes. Again, longest match of the night. And about 10 minutes in, they introduce the Hart family element. You know, they're talking that like Stu and Brett's mom, that Stu's there and Brett's mom's there and
Yeah.
everything. And then they finally start showing them in the audience. They're really building up to this. So
Yeah.
you're like, this is going to be
They're
great.
fully invested in that angle.
You
and then they completely fuck
no
it up.
payoff.
you feel like this whole thing is like Stu's like they went to Stu or like Stu, when we're gonna come up to you, we're gonna talk about this. Here's what you want to say, or let us know what you want to say. We'll approve it. You feel like this whole thing staged, and then it happens, and it's like a poorly edited kung fu movie, man.
He said,
Like,
"Hibbit, habbit."
and
the
there you
voice I
have
heard.
it. And like Hayes turns away from Stu to the
Knocks him
camera,
out.
and Stu's like.
He's still talking.
He's still talking.
He's full on. His thought is coming out.
Oh,
He's dropping some knowledge, and Lord Alfred Hayes is like, all right, F this. We took too long. But to surmise my feelings, not Stu Hart interview withstanding, the best part, and I know we've talked about this, but I want to reiterate it again. The best part about Bret Hart matches, it does not matter whether it was WrestleMania 2 in 1986 or something, or it doesn't matter if it's WrestleMania 12 or WrestleMania 13. It doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter if it's Survivor Series or King of the Ring or what the fuck ever. All of his matches still hold up today. All of them.
Facts.
All of them. I could go back and watch some shitty ass old wrestling that's like, I mean, it's not bad, but it's nostalgia that's holding me. Like, I feel like the rose colored glasses are some of the matches I've watched. I'll go randomly back and watch something from Rumble 91. I'm like, well, this match kind of sucks, actually. But I don't know how I thought it was so good before. Brett's matches, they just hold. Like, people, he himself, and guys like him and Shawn Michaels really created an entire generation of wrestlers who emulate what they do still to this day.
yep.
So, yeah, that is one of my favorite matches of all time.
Great
Ooh, I got
fucking
that.
choice.
I'm like a little
Great
loose from that
choice.
laugh.
Great choice.
Thank you, sir. I'm glad you got a chance to watch it for the first time, Mac.
Yeah.
I'm really happy that you got a chance to see that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was
I've seen
a
that
great
match a number of times, but now I'm going to go back and watch
So you got
Stu Hart
I
getting
swear to God, it's the funniest thing you'll ever see.
robbed of screen
Honestly, he
time.
was.
Oh my God, it was great.
Yeah. So,
We
coming
got-
back to me,
We got one more match here.
we got one
gentlemen.
more.
Yeah,
Just
it,
one
it
left.
happens to be
Just
one
one
of
left.
the greats ever.
It's on Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
Yeah, so going back to 1987, way back when.
Taking you back a little bit
Yeah.
here, ladies and gentlemen.
WrestleMania 3.
WrestleMania 3.
Most people think WrestleMania 3, they think Hogan versus Andre the Giant, right? Pretty big deal. But there are two mid-card guys in that show who are like, man, Hogan versus Andre, that's a pretty big deal. Like, how do you think that we can outshow those guys? Because that's a spectacle, right?
Right.
So how do we cement ourselves in the legacy of the World Wrestling Federation and put on a match that people are going to remember for decades to come? And they did just that. So we are talking about the one and only Macho Man Randy Savage versus the one and only Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. WrestleMania 3 for the Intercontinental title.
Yet again.
Wait.
Yeah.
What?
Intercontinental, man. 4 out of the 6 matches
What?
we have talked about today
What?
have been
Intercontinental? Or as the Macho Madness would say,
The Intercontinental Heavyweight Champion.
Intercontinental Heavyweight
yeah.
I love that he threw the heavyweight.
I love it.
And more people should. 'Cause
Yeah.
it might as well be. I
Yeah.
mean, it's what it said on the fucking belt. Intercontinental Heavyweight Champion.
Yeah. So there was a little bit of build up to this match in November of 1986 in a show. Savage was defending the Intercontinental Championship against Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. At this point in wrestling, Macho Man only cared about two things. One was his belt. Two was Miss Elizabeth. So he defended the title against Steamboat. Won via countout, I believe, and decided to savagely, no pun intended, attack Ricky the Dragon Steamboat after the match. Took a ring bell to his throat.
No, not to his throat, Jeff. Not to his throat. To his larynx. I
Which
heard
is in his throat.
more
Yes.
larynx talk in this match
Any other match ever.
Yeah.
before or since. And I often wondered as I was watching the promos and all this, how many people that watched wrestling were like, "Oh, fuck's a larynx?" Because you didn't have a cell phone.
You're like,
You're not
"Oh,
Googling
yeah,
this
in his
shit.
throat, yeah.
You know, you got
Let
to
me
go.
grab out my
You
Encyclopedia
got to see if you got your
Britannica.
Encyclopedia
see what's in
Britannica in the
there.
dining room.
Yeah. So Steamboat was out on made-for-TV injury for a few months. In those few months, Savage was feuding with George the Animal Steel in the interim, and it was all building up to Steamboat's return at WrestleMania. So this match, not super long, it was only just over 14 minutes.
Longest match of the night.
Was it really?
It was.
No shit.
Believe it or not.
But it was a game changer in terms of wrestling.
Yeah.
If you look at where those two were in their careers, they're smaller guys. And most of the WrestleMania matches were like sort of these grandiose spectacles, like Hogan versus Andre. Like, you're watching it because it's like these two giants, these two pillars of wrestling each other. But for Macho Man and Steamboat, it was these two smaller technical guys who wanted to showcase wrestling for the sake of wrestling. So they basically put on a 14-minute masterclass in wrestling. One thing that's sort of unique about this particular match is a lot of the matches up to that point, there were sort of like milestones that the guys would shoot for within the match. So, you know, at this point we need to be here. At this point I need to do this move. At this point you need to do this. And at that point, that's the finish. Savage was like, no. I want to make sure that every single move in this match is 100% choreographed. Like, from A to Z. Like,
Yeah.
we both need to know exactly what needs to happen at every single point in this match. So, the way that Steamboat tells it
I love how Steamboat tells it.
is that they had a yellow notebook, like a legal notebook with lines on it, and they basically just wrote out the numbers, like 1 through 100. And like Savage would pass them in the hall and be like, "What's move number 45?" And he's like, "Oh, well, 45 is this." And then Savage would be like, "Well, 46 is this, and 47 is this, so what's 48?" And be like, "Oh, 48 and 49 are this." And they go back and forth. And it was so meticulous in terms of the overall planning. And then they get in the ring and they fucking execute it flawlessly.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Flawlessly. From start to finish, the crowd was 100% in. They had 21 false finishes.
It's just crazy to think in
Yeah,
1980.
all pre-planned.
Yeah.
Like,
That's crazy.
is he winning? Is he winning? Is he winning? And like the crowd kept flip-flopping like throughout the thing. And they wanted to make sure they had a match. They wanted to basically say, we had a match that outshined what was to come, which was Hogan versus Andre. And they did it flawlessly. And if you look at the back and forth, the technical skill set and the aptitude that they had in the ring to make it happen, not just from like, hey, we're memorizing what's happening, but to actually execute that and to bring to light, sort of the significance of the Intercontinental title. Because up until that point, it was just another title, but it wasn't that big of a deal. But B, how do you elevate guys who are like mid-sized guys? Like, it really set the standard for Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels
for sure.
and Chris Jericho and all these other guys that would come in the subsequent years to be like, okay, the guys who wrestle like this and look like this can really bring relevancy to wrestling. And it's not just this, hey, this grandiose spectacle of like, I'm watching that match because that match is, you know, sort of this marquee gimmick match. But it's like, these guys are really fucking good wrestlers. And it's inspired it inspired young guys who are doing it today. And for me, this match it's super interesting to watch because they do it so well. And especially if you look at the whole card for WrestleMania, like WrestleMania 3, there's not many great matches.
There's a lot of just
there's
big matches.
There's matches, yes, but there's none that you remember outside of this one and Hogan versus the Giant.
Listen,
Andre the Giant, obviously.
Everybody remembers the irresistible force meeting the immovable object.
Yeah.
That is, I don't know if there is a more like memorable line outside of "My God is my witness, he's broken in half" or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, but I will always appreciate Gorilla Monsoon giving us that because that was perfect. You know, Hogan walking up to Andre,
Yeah.
you know, getting fired up and shaking his fist.
Yeah,
you know,
just the imagery of
that's
that.
just perfect. I mean, that is WrestleMania
in and of itself.
Ultimately,
yes.
that is WrestleMania.
Yeah.
But you want to talk about influential, man. And props to you, Jeff, for picking your two matches are two of the most influential matches ever. But, you know, obviously, I, being 5 years old, did not watch this match. I didn't watch this match for a long time.
I didn't watch
I
this
didn't come
match
across
as a
this
kid.
shit until I got my WrestleMania 3 on VHS, which wasn't until like 1997. I'd never seen the match before. I've heard.
Which you sold to your Spanish teacher.
No. I saw the box set.
Okay.
I saw the box set. I'm never getting rid of that. The beauty of having the box set is that I have all the original audio.
That's awesome.
I don't have the bastardized network version of any of that. So at WrestleMania 1, when Hogan comes out with Mr. T, Eye of the Tiger plays. That shit, you can't find that anywhere.
Yeah.
But I got that.
There's a lot of licensing issues.
Yeah,
in
and it's
between.
it's pretty awesome with Eye of the Tiger
yeah.
plays. But so with this match, like, I don't know, if there's anything more influential in terms of wrestling than this match, because at the time it came out in 1987, we're talking like most of the bigger stars that we watched as they're a few years older than us. They're like, 10 years old, 9 years old. They're old enough to really appreciate this. I can't tell you how many interviews I've read, autobiographies I've read from various big-time wrestlers, Hall of Fame, first ballot inductees, who said, me and my brother or me and my best friend, we would emulate this one match all the time when we were growing up.
Yeah, and Steamboat said, even in interviews today, kids who are 10 and younger still come up and ask him about this match.
Well, if you think about it, how relatable can anybody be with Andre the Giant? There's no relatability.
Yeah, there's not a lot of guys who are like, you know what, that guy looks just like me.
Exactly.
I think I have a shot at that.
You fantasize about Andre the Giant, or being the Giant and everything. But realistically, nobody can ever be the Giant. There will never be another Andre the Giant, even with other big men, right? Same thing with Hogan. Again, everything we want to say about Hogan is entirely true, but the man's place on the mantle in terms of what he did for wrestling and the heights he reached and everything, it's undisputable, right? And again, very few people can ever be that.
Right.
And we've had a chance to watch that in our lives, which is pretty amazing. But you know what you can be? You can be the middle-sized guy. You can be the undersized guy.
It's far more relatable.
Yeah. You can use your intelligence like they did to craft a match. You mentioned it. It's I love wrestling stories. One of the things I love about wrestling is when, they peel the curtain back and you can kind of just see how they came up with these things. And I love the story that you mentioned, Jeff, about how they sat down with a notepad and staged everything. Because when you hear about the next match, when you watch the Andre the Giant documentary and everything, and they talk about Hogan and his experience, he's like, I wanted to sit down with Andre and talk about everything, and Andre kept pushing it off and pushing it off and pushing it off. And
the thing is, too, about this particular match is that Vince and Pat Patterson had zero influence.
Yeah.
Like, Macho Man was steering the ship the
Yeah.
whole way. Even though they're like, hey, this is what we would like, Macho Man's like, no, this is what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, you do you. And
You
they
gotta
let him do it. And I mean, the payoff is obviously there.
Yeah. And just to be able to see how, because when you take away WrestleMania 3, those are the two things you take away. How different they were and how they came about. It's amazing. They both worked, obviously, but the thing people always talk about, like that's Masterclass 101. Like that's the first thing you watch. Like this is how it's done, kids. Everything that you see that comes after is probably built on this. And it is. I would have probably picked this, Jeff. You got yours in before I had an opportunity to. But this has always been one of my favorite matches of all time to kind of watch, because I've always been a big Steamboat fan. Can you say a guy is maybe underappreciated in the history of wrestling who's Ricky Steamboat? Probably not, but you can also probably say a little bit that maybe he is.
He does not get the flowers quite the way he should.
Not quite the way he should. Now, WWE's done some things over the years to make sure he's had his spotlight later on, and I remember when he got inducted, he did some matches, the crowd was going crazy because it's still Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, right?
Yeah, and the thing is, like, if you look at this particular match and these two guys, when you look back at what the WWF looked like at that time, there were a lot of big, slow guys, but there weren't a lot of small, fast guys. So it felt different than a lot of those bigger matches for that reason alone. And to really be able to showcase and bring to light some of the attention on, what the value of that could bring long term. I think it's had a really long-lasting impact on wrestling as a whole across, all wrestling organizations, not just WWF.
It's funny how even to this day we still have that conversation that, with Vince, it's still, preferable that it's a big guy who has the title. The push for Brock, the push for, Roman's a bigger guy, but I still think Roman's kind of more of a hybrid. But having that machine, the mauler, the thing that you look at him walking down the street, the guy that you don't want to mess with. But we've also, a lot of us that are big wrestling fans, fight for the Daniel Bryan, for the CM Punk, for Shawn Michaels and Bret.
Yeah. You root for the little guy.
The quote-unquote smart guy that you can see visually will out-wrestle that other guy in a phone book. Although I won't say Brock Lesnar because, even I put in that note in that match was... I think we don't give Lesnar enough credit as his ability as an athlete and as a wrestler because of how often he's portrayed as a mauler.
Right.
But you can see in a match with CM Punk how much of a wrestler he is.
Yeah, I mean, that's his background was like traditional college wrestling,
but like
Olympic wrestling.
Yeah, but you can get that he could wrestle any type of wrestler and make a match out of it, right?
Sure.
But a lot of these guys couldn't. But this match gave us, regular guys a chance. Like I could do that.
I could do that. Except we couldn't.
No.
But
So I kind of
there's always hope, though.
I want to do a little shout out to the machine that is the WWF in 1987, because I know like we as fans put this match on a pedestal because it deserves to be. WrestleMania 1 and 2, fine shows, closed circuit pay-per-views towards, I think 3 was on pay-per-view actually technically.
Yeah.
But, the funny thing about Ricky Steamboat is that Ricky Steamboat was doing this before.
Oh, yeah. That's just what he did.
Yeah. He has legendary, and I'm not even exaggerating, but legendary matches with Ric Flair in, 1984. These guys were consistently putting on 60-minute matches like it was their job, because it was their job. And it was normal. false finishes, major back and forths, fast paced. Back when Flair was Flair, when he was Ric
and the
Flair.
crowds ate that up.
Yeah. But the difference was, we're talking Jim Crockett Promotions, talking JCP, where they did not, they were not the machine that the WWF was becoming. So you have to appreciate that because it was at WrestleMania 3, it's so famous. You know what I mean?
Right.
Not because it was like such a one. It wasn't like such a special thing, but it was special on WWF television. But these guys,
it was given the spotlight.
Yeah, it's just a little thing I like to point out because that is a big part of it. Ricky Steamboat, that's just how dude operated.
Yep.
And Randy Savage, and I will always give Randy Savage all the props in the world because he's one of the greatest that have ever done it. Because I don't know where I wrote it, but at one point I wrote, everything he does has meaning, all of it, all his selling, all his reactions to Steamboat selling. His movements, his finger movements, his body language, everything Savage does has a point to it.
Yeah.
To push the story along because he is, according to him, the Lord and Master of the Ring.
Yeah, and to that point, I mean, they could have had this match on Saturday Night Main Event, but would it have gotten the same sort of perception and lens if it wasn't on the grandiose stage that it was being WrestleMania?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah. And you mentioned it, Jones. The way the match moved. This match had speed.
Oh, it's so fast-paced.
It's real fast. There's a great pace to this match. Again, you didn't see a lot of that at this point. Two guys moving like that, doing what they were doing with precision. You
weren't seeing that in the main event.
No.
The only other place you were seeing that consistently was the tag team division. Ironically, with the Hart Foundation and the British Bulldogs and the Killer Bees, those teams. They were the ones who were typically closing out the show on the house show loops because you want to send the fans home fired up and happy.
Yeah.
Usually the Hogan would go on like midway through, but if you wanted to end the show with like really good wrestling.
Yeah. High
Put the Hart
impact
Foundation
stuff.
on last.
Yeah.
And that, if you think about it, it's pretty wild.
You know what's weird? So I looked at the card of this pay-per-view when I was doing my research, and I had kind of forgotten the Hart Foundation had a match in this.
It was a 6-man, right?
It's a weird... Wrestling for me is always very weird because I don't have... timing for me for wrestling was always weird. Like, I always think that certain wrestlers were way before...
around a different time when they were actually...
way before, like a different time,
off.
decades off. And, I don't think of WrestleMania 3 as being 1987.
It was a long
I
time
think
ago.
of WrestleMania 3 as being, it might as well be 1960 to me, for whatever reason, right? You forget that these guys were there. I forget that Brett was in the WWE for 15 years before, everything happened. So it's always kind of weird to me when I kind of go back and look at that. Oh yeah, these guys were around too.
They were kind of a thing.
They were doing their thing.
They were tag champs too.
Yep. Yes, they were.
They were wearing blue that show, which is weird.
Yeah.
It's so damn weird. And I always think it's weird when the Hart Foundation wears blue. But excellent choice. Listen, it's one of the greatest matches of all time, and it's a sure shot too because you'd be hard pressed to find a single fan who goes, it's okay.
I don't really like
Maybe
that
it's smacked in
match.
the mouth.
Yeah.
It's one of the best matches of all time. You shut your mouth. You know you're lying to your teeth.
Like you mentioned it earlier. If someone who doesn't watch wrestling and you're trying to tell them hey, these are the matches you should watch. I always recommend this one, and I always recommend the Iron Man match between Michaels and Bret Hart.
It's a good call.
Those are my two go-tos
Funny
every
that
time.
None of us had that. We didn't decide to list that. That is, again, like you said, that is such a iconic match.
Yeah, not one of my favorites though.
Yeah,
I like it a lot, but it's definitely not one of my favorites.
Same.
It's in I'd say it's top 20.
Yeah, and that's the thing. To narrow it down to 2 is hard.
Oh yeah.
And we talked about 6 great matches over the last couple hours, but there are dozens of other great matches that we didn't have a chance to talk about.
There's so many.
And even with Noah not here, there's another whole layer of X number of matches that we all know and love and treat very dearly in terms of putting them on our Mount Rushmore of wrestling matches.
Well, so it's funny you said that. So I was talking to Noah when I was kind of prepping for this, and I was asking him some questions and everything. And if Noah was here, I assure you, we probably would have had at least one New Japan match that would have been in here.
I do want to point out that there's not a single WCW or ECW match.
No, I know.
Not a single
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Certainly not AEW.
No AEW.
No.
No, there's so again, ladies and gentlemen, we really did kind of pick up I mean, you might even say favorite WWF, WWE matches of all time on this one, if you will. But if you will,
Part one, if
one.
you will.
yeah. But there's so many great wrestling promotions and great matches that we didn't even bring up in this. So
Just scratching the surface.
just scratching the surface, everybody. There's gonna be more to come on that here on future episodes of the podcast. So, gentlemen, final thoughts.
My final thought is excellent list all around. I really enjoyed this conversation. It was nice to kind of reminisce, and it was really, I know it's weird, but it's really, I'm really glad that you watched that Bret Perfect match for the first time.
Yeah.
I just think it's one of those matches, and like if you're a fan of Bret Hart, if you're just a fan of Bret Hart in general, this is a match you should probably watch at least one good time, because it's just a hell of a performance. But no, I enjoyed myself, and I'm glad we're going to do it again. I still kind of want to book the territory at some point with you guys and see what kind of shenanigans we can come up with. But that's a conversation for another time.
Yep.
My final thoughts is, these are a lot of great matches, and there's a lot of other great matches. And these are just our opinions, right? But one of the great things about this is, at least before we record a show like this, we share our thoughts with the rest of the guys, and we get to go back and revisit some of these matches. And some we're experiencing for the first time, some we're rewatching for the 15th time. But these are all great matches. We would highly recommend you guys to go out and check them out and share with us, some of your favorite matches so that we can check those out and share our opinions. But
yes,
these types of shows for us are really fun to do.
Yeah, they're typically not the most popular. They do not get as many downloads and listens, but that's fine. Fuck you, it's okay.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
We were still going to do it anyhow for like the three of you who listen to the wrestling episodes.
So, hey Jeff.
Hey Dave.
Hey Jeff.
Yeah.
Hey Jeff.
What's up?
What do we got coming up next?
That's a great question.
Is it?
Nobody
Is
knows.
I thought we
Is
already
it?
knew. Don't we have it?
Well, I thought we discussed it. It
Is it something you have to say 3 times?
might be something you have to say 3 times.
Maybe.
Next week on Nothing Good, we are talking about a film you may have heard about that stars Michael Keaton. That is not Batman, but we are going to talk about
Johnny
the one
Dangerously,
and
Great
only
movie.
Mr. Mom, Gung Ho.
Beetlejuice.
He said it 3
I
times.
was going to
Ladies
say
and
Dream
gentlemen.
Team.
Oh, shit.
Wrong movie.
Birdman,
Good
Multiplicity.
movie also.
The Flash.
Michael Keaton has a lot of good movies.
He's in a lot of shit.
A
Yeah.
goddamn Pittsburgh treasure, man.
Yeah, so next week we are talking about the one and only Beetlejuice as our next film review.
It'll be an interesting
We're
experience.
excited to
Oh,
talk
man.
about that. And we're excited to talk about a lot of other things after that. And we're excited to have you guys on board
Yes.
to listen along with us. So thank you again for tuning in this week and next week and all the weeks after that. We appreciate you.
Nothing good.